The northern wall of the council chamber exploded inward. Stone and ancient mortar blasted across the room as 12 powerful alphas rose in shock. Through the smoke stepped a woman with crimson eyes, and she was not a werewolf. Her gaze locked on Lyra. "Hello, Silverblood. We've been waiting for you to wake up." Lyra called on the power that had once made entire alphas submit. Nothing happened. Her abilities flickered, weakened, then began slipping away, and the vampire smiled as if she already knew why. Chapter 1. 6 Months of Peace. 6 months earlier, the borderlands had changed beyond recognition. What had once been a collection of desperate refugee camps had become something much closer to a real society. Lyra Silverblood stood on the observation deck of the building her people insisted on calling the Alpha's Tower. She had repeatedly asked them to choose a less ridiculous name, but no one seemed interested in listening. Below her, the territory slowly awakened beneath the early morning sun. 543 wolves now called the borderlands home. Rejected mates had come from packs across the kingdom. Rogues had arrived after being exiled for offenses as small as loving the wrong person. Others had spent their lives unable to fit inside the rigid structures of traditional packs. Every one of them had come looking for sanctuary, and Lyra had accepted them. "You're brooding again." Lyra heard the familiar voice behind her but didn't turn. She didn't need to. Her enhanced senses had already identified the person who had entered her private space without knocking. "I'm not brooding, Arya. I'm thinking." Arya Moonstone stepped beside her, golden hair catching the sunrise. "You're doing that thing where you stare dramatically into the distance while wondering whether you're doing enough." Lyra gave her a sideways look. Arya continued. "It looks very noble, very leader-like. It's also exhausting to watch." Despite herself, Lyra smiled. 6 months earlier, neither of them could have imagined becoming friends. Yet ever since the night Arya had brought Celeste's journal to her in the tower, they had grown steadily closer. Lyra pulled a folded piece of parchment from her jacket. "I received another letter from the Northern Alliance." Arya already looked unimpressed. "They want me to stop accepting wolves from their territories. Apparently I'm destabilizing their packs by offering refuge to their problem members." By problem members, they mean wolves who question their authority. Exactly. Lyra crushed the letter slightly in her hand. "Alpha Vincent alone has lost 67 pack members to us in 3 months. They're convinced I'm building an army." Arya turned toward her. "Are you?" The question lingered between them. Lyra looked down at the borderlands. On one side of the settlement, rejected wolves trained together, learning to defend themselves regardless of former rank. Beyond them stood the council building, where decisions were debated and voted on, instead of being dictated by a single alpha. Farther away, the medical center treated anyone who needed help, regardless of pack affiliation. "I'm building something," Lyra finally said. "I'm just not certain what it is yet." A knock interrupted them. Commander Hayes entered. The concern on his weathered face immediately made Lyra's instincts sharpen. "My lady." She sighed internally at another title she had failed to eliminate. "We have a situation." "What kind?" Hayes hesitated. "The kind involving your former pack leader and approximately 50 wolves requesting asylum." Lyra went completely still. "Elena?" "She's waiting at the southern border with wolves from the old Nightshade territory. She's formally requesting admission to your pack." Hayes paused. "She also says Alpha Cade is planning something significant. Something she believes you need to know." The journey toward the southern border gave Lyra far too much time to think. 6 months. That was how long it had been since she had last stood face to face with Elena. Elena had raised her. Elena had loved her. Elena had also betrayed her. And afterward, Elena had been forced to watch while the supposedly weak girl she had helped cast out awakened as the last Silverblood heir and became something no one had expected. They had exchanged several letters since then. None had said what needed to be said. They were polite, formal messages circling the enormous wound between them without ever touching it directly. Now Elena had come to the territory Lyra had created from nothing. And she was asking Lyra for protection. "You don't have to meet her yourself," Arya said as they walked. "If you're not ready, I can conduct the intake interview. I can learn whatever she knows about Cade without forcing you to deal with her." "No." Lyra's answer was immediate. If Elena came here, something frightened her enough to swallow her pride and ask me for help. I need to know what. They reached the border checkpoint. A temporary camp had been arranged for the newcomers. Around 50 wolves stood in small groups. Some Lyra remembered from childhood. Others had apparently joined the Nightshade pack after her exile. Every one of them looked exhausted and afraid. At the center of the group stood Elena. She looked smaller than Lyra remembered, more fragile. Their eyes met. Something inside Lyra cracked. Not the anger. That remained, a hot ember she had never managed to extinguish. It was something underneath it. A memory of being 5 years old, terrified and alone inside a cave until Elena had found her. Elena had held her, protected her, promised that everything would be all right. She had eventually broken that promise. But before breaking it, she had kept it for 17 years. "Lyra," Elena's voice trembled. Then she seemed to remember where she was. She straightened. "Alpha Silverblood, I formally request sanctuary for myself and my people under the asylum laws of the Borderlands." "Granted." The answer left Lyra before she had time to reconsider it. "Commander Hayes will process everyone and arrange temporary housing. But before any of that, you're going to tell me what happened." Relief crossed Elena's face. Then fear replaced it. "It's Cade." Lyra's expression hardened. "He's been meeting with someone. I don't know who, but whoever they aren't werewolves." "What makes you certain?" "The scent." Elena shivered. "It's wrong, and Cade has been asking questions about you, your abilities, your weaknesses, about..." She stopped. "About what, Elena?" Elena lowered her voice. "Whether there are spells capable of temporarily suppressing Silverblood abilities." A cold feeling settled inside Lyra. Elena continued. "When I confronted him, I told him I would not help him hurt you again. He said I had stopped being useful. He told me the Nightshade territory would be absorbed into his pack, and that anyone who resisted would be classified as a rogue." Lyra's power reacted instinctively. "He threatened your people." "He did more than threaten them." Elena's hands began shaking. 3 pack members refused to submit. "They disappeared last week." She swallowed. "We found them yesterday." Lyra stared at her. "They were dead?" "Torn apart. Their bodies were left at our border as a warning." Elena's eyes filled. "Whatever Cade is involved in, Lyra, this isn't only about you anymore. He's becoming something different, something dangerous." Arya stepped forward. "If Cade is meeting with another species while researching Silverblood suppression, then he's building alliances outside werewolf territory. That violates multiple supernatural treaties. Unless the people he's meeting have already decided those treaties no longer matter," Lyra said. Pieces began fitting together. "Elena, you said their scent was wrong. Describe it." Elena visibly recoiled at the memory. Death, old death, and something sweet beneath it, almost like flowers covering decay. Commander Hayes growled. "Vampires." Lyra looked at him. "That's their scent signature," he said. "For 300 years, werewolves and vampires had maintained an unstable peace established by the Treaty of Blood Moon. Boundaries had been clearly defined. Interference between species was restricted. If Cade was secretly negotiating with vampires, this was no longer a pack dispute. "If vampires are involved," Lyra said slowly, "and they're helping research ways to suppress Silverblood abilities." She looked at Elena. "Did Cade explain why?" Pain crossed Elena's face. "He said the supernatural world cannot survive another Isabella Silverblood." Lyra's jaw tightened. "He said your grandmother nearly destroyed the balance between species because of her ambition." He believes allowing you to become more powerful would repeat the greatest mistake in supernatural history. So he plans to stop me before I become dangerous. No. Elena's voice was quiet. He already believes you're dangerous. She looked directly at Lyra. You built a successful pack of more than 500 wolves in 6 months. You challenged traditional alpha authority and won. Rejected wolves throughout the kingdom now look at you as proof that the system can be changed. Elena drew a breath. You've destabilized the old order more in 6 months than your grandmother did in decades. The alphas are terrified of you. The words landed harder than Lyra expected. She had spent months building a sanctuary, giving people food, housing, protection, laws, choice. She had been so focused on helping wolves rejected by the old system that she had never seriously considered what her success looked like to the wolves who benefited from that system. She wasn't merely operating a refuge. Without intending to, Lyra had become the center of a revolution. Get your people settled, she told Elena. We'll speak again later. Right now I need to. Pain exploded through her chest. Lyra gasped. It felt as though someone had driven a spike of ice directly through her heart. Her knees buckled. Lyra! Arya caught her. Something was terribly wrong. The pack bonds surrounding Lyra began flickering. Her supernatural awareness, normally capable of locating almost every wolf for miles, stuttered, then vanished. What's happening? Arya demanded. I don't. Lyra couldn't finish. Pain spread from her chest into her arms, spine, and legs. Her silver blood power fought against whatever was invading her body, but she couldn't hold on to it. Then Oracle Vera appeared beside them. Not walked, appeared. She emerged from shadow, using the ancient magic that allowed her to travel through darkness when necessary. Her face went pale the instant she examined Lyra. Suppression poison. The Oracle's hands glowed as she began a magical diagnosis. Someone has been giving you small doses over several weeks. The poison is designed to accumulate slowly so it remains undetectable until the concentration reaches a critical level. How? Hayes demanded. She hasn't left the territory. Everything she eats and drinks is tested. It isn't in her food. Oracle Vera looked at Lyra. It's in the air. Everyone fell silent. Someone has been burning suppression herbs in tiny quantities near your quarters. The smoke is almost impossible to detect. The effects build gradually. Her ancient eyes hardened. You've been breathing it for weeks. Lyra struggled upright. My abilities have been weakening the entire time without you realizing it. Someone inside my pack poisoned me. Or someone capable of accessing your private spaces, Vera corrected. Neither possibility was comforting. Either one of the wolves Lyra had protected had betrayed her, or her territory's security had been compromised so completely that her enemies could enter her quarters unnoticed. How long? Lyra asked. Oracle Vera looked grim. Before the suppression becomes permanent? Lyra nodded. 3 days. Possibly 4 if all further exposure ends now. Arya's face changed. And after that? Her silver blood abilities will lock permanently. Vera looked at Lyra. You would become an ordinary alpha. A beat passed. Assuming the poison doesn't kill you first. Can you cure it? I can slow the progression. The complete antidote requires a specific ingredient, which is Midnight Lotus. Lyra waited. Vera continued. It grows only in the sacred gardens of vampire territory. Lyra let out a short, humorless laugh. The garden's werewolves are forbidden from entering under the Treaty of Blood Moon. Yes. Of course. Lyra closed her eyes briefly. So my choices are to lose my abilities permanently, or violate a 300-year-old treaty and potentially start a war. There may be another option, Elena said. Everyone looked at her. Cade mentioned a gathering, a secret meeting between leaders of the major supernatural species. It happens in neutral territory in 3 days. Her voice became more urgent. If the Vampire Council attends, perhaps you could negotiate directly. That's suicide, Hayes said immediately. Lyra looked at him. You would be walking into a gathering full of hostile supernatural leaders while your abilities are collapsing, he continued. You'd be defenseless. I'd be demonstrating good faith. Despite the poison, Lyra's tactical mind was already turning. If vampires are helping Cade suppress me, then they consider me dangerous. If I answer that by attacking their territory, I prove every fear they have about my bloodline. Arya understood. But if you attend peacefully, I prove I'm not Isabella. You show them that silver blood power doesn't automatically lead to tyranny. Oracle Vera shook her head. No, it is too dangerous. In your current state, a determined attacker could kill you, and several alphas attending that gathering would consider your death a political gift. Then I don't attend alone. Lyra forced herself upright. Her power might be failing, but her voice still carried authority. I bring representatives of the borderlands. I bring witnesses who can explain what we've built. I bring evidence that the old system is failing. She looked at Elena, Arya, Hayes, Vera, and the refugees standing nearby. 6 months ago, I stood in an arena with every reason to choose revenge. She remembered Cade beneath her power, and I chose mercy. I'm making the same choice now. Her eyes hardened. Whoever poisoned me expects violence. Whoever is working with Cade expects me to become exactly the monster they already believe I am. A dangerous smile touched her lips. So we're going to disappoint them. We're going to their gathering. She straightened. And we're going to negotiate. Chapter 2. The Coalition of Alphas. The emergency council was called at midnight. Traditionally, it was the hour chosen for Pack Matters powerful alphas preferred to conduct without witnesses. Lyra sat at the head of the circular table inside the Borderlands Council chamber. The poison moved through her body like slow ice. Her enhanced senses no longer failed gradually. They vanished without warning. One moment, she could hear every heartbeat in the building. The next, she could barely sense more than an ordinary werewolf. It terrified her. She refused to let the others see that. 12 alphas had answered King Aldrich's summons. They were some of the most powerful pack leaders in the kingdom, and had not gathered in one place since Lyra defeated Cade 6 months earlier. They sat according to territorial size. Hostility filled the chamber. One chair was conspicuously empty. Cade had not come. Let's finish this quickly, Alpha Marcus Ironwood said. His voice held the effortless arrogance of a wolf whose territory controlled nearly a third of the kingdom's mining resources. We all understand the reason for this meeting. The silver blood situation has gone too far. Lyra remained calm. The silver blood situation? Her eyes narrowed. Is that what we're calling basic rights now? We call it destabilization, Alpha Vincent Shadow answered. He leaned toward her. You have taken more than 300 wolves from established territories in 6 months. Wolves who swore loyalty to their packs are abandoning those oaths for your sanctuary. I haven't taken anyone. Lyra's tone sharpened. Rejected, abused, and exiled wolves are choosing somewhere they're treated as people. If members of your pack prefer my territory to yours, perhaps you should ask yourselves why. Alpha David Stormclaw cut in. Or perhaps we should ask whether they're choosing at all. Lyra stared at him. What are you implying? Your grandmother could compel wolves within her range. How do we know you aren't using the same ability to steal pack members? The accusation hung in the room. Lyra almost appreciated the irony. She was literally being poisoned while sitting there listening to them accuse her of corrupting others with supernatural influence. If I could command wolves against their will, she said quietly, why would I bother negotiating with any of you? No one answered. Wouldn't it be easier to simply take your packs? That silenced several of them, but not King Aldrich. The ancient monarch had been watching from the other side of the chamber with the calculating patience of someone who had survived generations of alpha politics. The accusation of supernatural compulsion is serious, he said. Lyra's attention shifted toward him. I propose Oracle Vera examine Alpha Silverblood's current abilities. If she is coercing pack members, the evidence will be clear. Lyra's stomach tightened. The poison had reduced her abilities to perhaps 40%, maybe less. If Vera examined her openly, everyone in the room could discover exactly how vulnerable she was. Refusing the examination would look like guilt. Lyra met Aldrich's eyes and realized he knew. Somehow, the old king knew she was weakened. He had placed her inside a trap with only 2 exits. Reveal vulnerability, or appear guilty. I have no objection, Lyra said. Aldrich smiled without warmth. Excellent, Oracle Vera. Vera emerged from the shadows. She revealed nothing as she approached Lyra and placed both hands beside her head. Diagnostic magic flowed. The room became silent. Seconds passed. Vera's expression grew increasingly concerned. Finally, she stepped back. Alpha Silverblood shows no evidence of compulsion magic. Lyra held still. In fact, Vera continued, her pack bonds with the Borderlands wolves are unusually weak for a Silverblood. They are only slightly stronger than the bonds of a normal alpha. Several wolves looked at Lyra. If anything, she relies on less supernatural coercion than nearly every alpha in this chamber. Relief hit Lyra. Then she understood exactly what Vera had done. The Oracle had explained the weakness caused by the poison without revealing the poison itself. But there was a price. Everyone now knew Lyra was operating far below the legendary power associated with her bloodline. Weak pack bonds? Marcus laughed. The legendary silver blood has weak bonds? He leaned back. Either that's the worst lie I've heard in years, or she isn't nearly the threat everyone believed. Or, Lyra said, I choose to lead through trust rather than supernatural domination. She looked around the table. Unlike certain alphas who maintain loyalty through fear and compulsion, the temperature inside the chamber seemed to drop. Every alpha present used supernatural pressure to some extent. It was normal, expected. No one liked hearing it described so plainly. This is accomplishing nothing, Alpha Sarah Moonriver said. She was one of the few female alphas in the kingdom, and one of the only leaders at the table who had never openly attacked Lyra's sanctuary. The question is not whether Alpha Silverblood uses compulsion. The question is whether our current system remains sustainable now that rejected wolves have a legitimate alternative. Exactly, Vincent snapped. She has constructed a competing structure that undermines traditional authority. Every rejected wolf who survives in her territory, Sarah continued, proves that exile is no longer the only outcome. Lyra looked around the table. Maybe the old ways should be undermined. The room exploded. Several alphas stood at once. Arguments collided. King Aldrich allowed the shouting to continue before lifting one hand. Silence gradually returned. Alpha Silverblood, he said. Are you suggesting the pack structure that has governed werewolf civilization for thousands of years should be abolished? Reconsidered, Lyra fought through another wave of pain. Any system that requires innocent wolves to be destroyed so everyone else can call it stable deserves examination. Innocent? Marcus scoffed. These are wolves who failed to secure appropriate mates. Wolves unable to maintain standing. Wolves who proved unworthy of. Their crime was being inconvenient. Lyra's voice cut through his. Mates rejected because they weren't politically valuable. Pack members exiled for questioning unfair orders. Wolves thrown away because they fell in love with someone from the wrong territory. She rose. Her strength was failing, yet enough power remained in her presence to quiet the room. You want to know what I'm building? Lyra looked directly at them. I'm building proof that your system is broken. Proof that wolves can live without waking every morning afraid that one rejection, one disagreement, or one politically inconvenient bond will destroy their lives. She placed both hands on the table. Strength can come from community. Her eyes moved across the alphas. It doesn't have to come from domination. Idealistic nonsense, David muttered. Is it? Arya stepped forward behind Lyra. The Borderlands has a lower violence rate than any traditional pack of comparable size. Our economic productivity is higher. Resource management is more efficient. She placed a thick folder on the table. We have a working economy, an elected council, and a defense structure that trains every wolf regardless of rank. She slid the documents toward them. We assumed you would demand evidence. Marcus opened the folder. Arya continued. 6 months of crime statistics, economic output, pack satisfaction surveys, comparative performance against traditional structures. Her smile was thin. It turns out wolves are remarkably productive when they aren't constantly terrified of arbitrary rejection. Marcus turned several pages. His expression darkened. This cannot be accurate. 3 independent supernatural auditors verified it. Arya folded her arms. You're free to hire a 4th. The mood shifted. This was no longer a revolutionary making emotional claims. It was measurable evidence that the Borderlands system worked. And that made Lyra more dangerous, not less. So what? Vincent demanded. Your sanctuary has impressive statistics. You are still stripping members from established packs and attacking traditions that have existed for centuries. I'm following the law. Lyra's voice was firm. The mate bond reforms passed after my challenge established that rejected wolves have the legal right to seek sanctuary elsewhere. She leaned toward him. If you want to stop losing people, stop rejecting them. Sarah studied her. And wolves who were never rejected? Some have abandoned secure positions to join you. It was a fair question. Lyra had expected it. I accept anyone who comes in good faith and agrees to obey Borderlands law. What if their home alpha refuses permission? If a wolf says they are unsafe or unwanted, I will not send them back simply because an alpha refuses to admit there's a problem. Marcus's voice became dangerously quiet. So traditional packs are inherently abusive? I'm saying that any organization unable to retain its members without supernatural coercion or threats of violence might benefit from asking why. Again, voices erupted around the table. But beneath the shouting, Lyra heard something else. 2 alphas whispered at the far end. Her damaged senses barely caught the words. The meeting happens in 2 days. Cade promised the Vampire Council she'd be permanently weakened. Lyra's blood chilled. We move. She tried to listen harder. Another wave of poison hit. Her senses collapsed. The whisper vanished. Lyra grabbed the edge of the table to remain standing. Vera was beside her immediately, casually placing a hand against her arm, while secretly supporting most of Lyra's weight. Perhaps we should suspend this session, the Oracle announced. Everyone is tired, and these matters deserve clearer minds. I agree, King Aldrich said. His gaze remained fixed on Lyra's pale face. We reconvene in 3 days. He looked around the table. Until then, existing territorial boundaries remain in force, and every pack will honor the asylum laws exactly as written. It wasn't victory, but it bought time. The alphas began leaving. Lyra watched Marcus Ironwood, Vincent Shadow, and David Stormclaw depart together. Their body language told her enough. When only her inner circle remained, Lyra sank into her chair. They're planning something. Elena moved closer. What did you hear? Something about the gathering. 2 days. They mentioned Cade. Elena nodded. It has to be the meeting I warned you about. Commander Hayes crossed his arms. So we have 2 days to identify whoever poisoned you, counter the effects, and somehow survive a gathering where several supernatural leaders may be planning your assassination. Lyra gave him a tired look. You forgot finding the traitor inside my own territory. About that, Vera said. Everyone turned. The poison does not necessarily require a traitor. Lyra frowned. Vera explained. Suppression herbs are rare but transportable. They could be hidden in gifts, letters, fabric. Arya suddenly froze. The Northern Alliance delegation. Lyra looked at her. 3 weeks ago. Arya's face had gone pale. They gave you that ceremonial robe as a goodwill gesture. Lyra slowly touched her chest. I wore it during the negotiations. For hours, Arya said, and afterward you kept it in your quarters. Oracle Vera nodded. The herbs could have been woven into the fabric. Every time you approached it, the material released trace amounts into the air. Lyra stared at them. Vera continued. Never enough to trigger an immediate alarm. Only enough to accumulate. Hayes exhaled harshly. So this was planned weeks ago. The poison, the political pressure, the gathering, none of it is spontaneous. No. Lyra looked at the map spread across the table. It's a campaign. She felt the enormity of it. Established alphas had always resented her success. She had not realized how far they were willing to go. We need leverage. Elena looked at the reports. What about Arya's data? If the Borderlands system is visibly outperforming traditional packs, other territories may want to copy it. Or destroy it before their own members demand the same thing, Arya said. Both, Lyra replied. Everyone looked at her. We release the data. To whom? Hayes asked. Everyone. Lyra straightened. Not only the alphas, every pack in the kingdom. Arya's eyes sharpened. Let ordinary wolves see that an alternative exists. Hayes almost smiled. You're turning this into a propaganda war. No. Lyra's answer was immediate. I'm giving wolves information. She looked toward the maps. And I'm betting that when people understand they can choose between fear and freedom, most won't choose fear. She stood. Vera, you have 2 days. Slow the poison enough that I can appear fully functional at the gathering. The Oracle nodded. Commander Hayes, review every security breach, everyone who entered my quarters, every visitor, every gift. Hayes was already taking notes. Arya, prepare the reports for public release. Then Lyra faced Elena. The room became quieter. Elena, the woman straightened. I need you to contact anyone from the old Nightshade pack who still has access to Cade's inner circle. Lyra held her gaze. Find everything you can. Tears appeared in Elena's eyes. I won't fail you this time. Lyra's voice softened, but only slightly. See that you don't. The council dispersed. Lyra remained behind. 6 months earlier she had owned nothing. No pack, no territory. No future, only newly awakened power and enough anger to challenge a broken system. Now she had hundreds of wolves who depended on her, land she was responsible for protecting, enemies who wanted her dead, and powers disappearing at the exact moment she needed them most. But she also possessed something Isabella Silverblood had never achieved. Her people followed because they chose her, not because she compelled them. Not because they feared punishment. They believed in what she was creating. In 2 days, Lyra would walk into a gathering of enemies while poisoned and weakening, and somehow she had to convince them that preserving the last silver blood was safer than destroying her. She looked at the map and almost laughed. No pressure. Chapter 3. The Ancient Prophecy Revealed. Oracle Vera's private chambers lay beneath the oldest section of Borderlands territory. The caves were ancient enough to predate recorded werewolf civilization. Symbols covered the walls. Under the movement of torchlight, some almost appeared alive. Old magic saturated the air so completely that Lyra's poisoned abilities reacted painfully to it. Vera handed her a cup. The liquid inside looked like diluted moonlight. It smelled like dead flowers. Drink. Lyra stared at it. What is it? Something that will either slow the poison or kill you immediately. Lyra looked up. Vera's face remained perfectly serious. At the moment, I would estimate the odds at approximately 50%. You're joking. I do not joke about fatal medicine. Vera gestured impatiently. Drink. Lyra continued staring. We do not have time for you to become delicate. Lyra swallowed it. The liquid burned all the way down. Then she stopped breathing. Her vision flashed white. Then black. Then colors erupted across her sight that should not have existed. When the world finally returned, she found Vera watching her with professional curiosity. "Well," Vera said, "you're alive." Lyra gasped for air. "I hate you." "You'll hate me considerably more in a moment." Lyra glared. Vera continued, "The antidote has a side effect." "Of course it does." "It temporarily removes the mental barriers protecting you from your inherited memories." Lyra's expression changed. "What memories?" "Your grandmother's." Vera's eyes reflected the torchlight. Everything Isabella knew, everything she experienced, everything she buried before she died. Lyra started to answer. Wait. The memories hit. Isabella Silverblood stood before the Council of Elders. She was 25 and already powerful enough that ancient wolves lowered their heads when she entered. "The supernatural world is breaking apart," Isabella declared. Her voice carried absolute certainty. "Vampires advance into our territories. Witches interfere with pack bonds. Humans create weapons capable of destroying us." She looked over the assembled leaders. "If we do not unite, we will be eliminated separately until werewolves exist only in history." An elder challenged her. "And you believe you should unite us?" Isabella looked at him. "You are barely beyond your first century, yet you presume to command alphas who have ruled for thousands of years." Isabella smiled. "I presume nothing." She stepped closer. "I am stating reality." The air around her vibrated with power. "I am stronger, faster, and more powerful than any werewolf born in 3 centuries. Her smile turned cold. "You may accept my leadership willingly, or I can demonstrate why resisting me is pointless." The memory changed. Isabella fought an alpha who refused to acknowledge her authority. It lasted less than 30 seconds. When it ended, he was dead. Isabella stood over him without breathing hard. She looked at the watching packs. Anyone else? No one moved. The silence was absolute. Not respect. Fear. Another memory. Isabella held an infant. Lyra's mother. Her expression contained love, but beneath the love was calculation. "You will surpass me," Isabella whispered to the child. "I will make you into something so powerful that no one will ever threaten our bloodline again." The memories accelerated. Ambition, battles, political victories, enemies, paranoia. Then Isabella found an ancient text. Her hands trembled as she read. "When the moon bleeds silver and the rejected rise, the last silver blood will stand at the crossroads between annihilation and salvation." Lyra felt Isabella's fear as though it were her own. "She will possess power enough to unite or destroy, to save or condemn, to become savior or tyrant." Isabella read the final words repeatedly. "Her choice will decide whether the supernatural world survives or falls into eternal darkness." "A choice," Isabella whispered. "Not destiny." She looked at the page. "A choice." But the prophecy never told her which choice was correct. Then came Isabella's final memory. She was dying. Enemies surrounded her. Blood covered her body from a dozen mortal wounds. Behind her, inside a cave, a 5-year-old Lyra hid in darkness. "The prophecy," Isabella gasped. "You don't understand." One of the alphas facing her was Marcus Ironwood's grandfather, young then, but with the same cold calculation in his eyes. "One member of my bloodline must survive," Isabella pleaded. "Someone has to be alive when the darkness comes." The older Ironwood looked down at her. "Your death will free supernatural society from silver blood tyranny. You don't understand. Your ambition nearly destroyed us." He looked toward the cave. "We will not risk your granddaughter repeating your mistakes." "She is 5 years old," Isabella's voice broke. For perhaps the first time in her life, she sounded truly helpless. "She's innocent. She doesn't even know what she is," another alpha answered. "Then she dies innocent." Isabella's eyes widened. Better that than allowing another silver blood to threaten us. With her remaining power, Isabella turned toward the cave. She poured everything she had into one final spell. A barrier formed. 12 alphas attacked it. It held. 3 days. That was all Isabella could create. 3 days in which someone might find the child and save her. Or 3 days in which Lyra would slowly die alone. Isabella collapsed. I'm sorry. Her enemies thought she spoke to them. She didn't. She spoke to the granddaughter hidden behind her barrier. I wanted to leave you a better world. Her breathing weakened. Instead, I'm leaving you this nightmare. Her eyes closed. If you survive, a final breath. Please make better choices than I did. Lyra returned to herself screaming for air. Tears covered her face. Vera held her shoulders. Breathe. Lyra struggled. You are here. You are safe. Those memories cannot touch you. She knew. Lyra could barely speak. My grandmother knew about the prophecy. Vera remained silent. She knew someone from our bloodline would face a choice capable of deciding the future of the entire supernatural world. Lyra looked at her. And she still became a tyrant? Vera finished. Yes. Lyra stared. Why? Because Isabella believed the only way to save the world was to control it. Vera sat opposite her. She could not imagine cooperation without domination. And they murdered her. They did. They tried to murder me too. Yes. Lyra wiped her face. Because they were afraid of what a silver blood could become. Vera's voice became gentler. Can you truly blame them for being afraid? Lyra looked up sharply. Your grandmother's power was almost immeasurable, and she used it to dominate every pack within reach. She thought she was saving them. I know. Vera's gaze remained steady. But to everyone outside her mind, Isabella looked like a conqueror building an empire. Lyra fell silent. Then she remembered the prophecy. The darkness. Vera's expression changed. The prophecy says the silver blood would face some kind of darkness, something powerful enough to threaten everyone. Lyra leaned closer. Do you know what it means? For a long time, Vera said nothing. When she finally spoke, her voice carried the weight of something terrible. Vampires have a prophecy of their own. Lyra waited. It describes a blood moon appearing when the supernatural world reaches its weakest point. Vera's eyes darkened. When that moon rises, the first vampire, the progenitor from whom their entire species descended, will escape the prison that has contained him for thousands of years. Cold spread through Lyra. What happens then? He feeds. Vera's answer was simple. On werewolves? On everything. Lyra stared. Werewolf, witch, human, vampire if necessary. He is hunger without conscience. Vera's voice lowered. When he was imprisoned 3,000 years ago, it required the combined strength of every major supernatural species. Lyra understood. My grandmother discovered this. She discovered fragments. That's why she tried to unite the packs. Yes. Vera nodded. She believed the first vampire would eventually return. She knew a divided supernatural world would have almost no chance against him. Lyra shook her head. But instead of explaining the threat, she conquered everyone. She tried to force unity. And failed. Completely. Vera's expression was grim. In failing, Isabella poisoned the idea of silver blood leadership for everyone who came after her. Lyra stared into the torchlight. And now I'm standing in the same place. Exactly. Vera leaned forward. The supernatural world is fracturing again. Vampires are breaking treaties. Werewolf packs are fighting each other. Witches increasingly isolate themselves. She paused. And somewhere inside a prison we still do not fully understand. The first vampire is becoming stronger. Lyra's mind raced. The gathering. Yes. Cade's alliance with vampires. Yes. The poison. She looked sharply at Vera. They know. Vera did not answer immediately. The vampires know his prison is failing. Lyra rose. They're keeping werewolves divided so no coordinated resistance can form. Some of them are. Why would vampires want their own progenitor freed if he could kill them too? Because vampires are no more united than werewolves. Vera stood. Some believe they can control him. Some believe they can offer other species as tribute and survive beneath his rule. Disgust entered her voice. And some simply prefer chaos. Lyra began pacing. So let me understand the situation. Vera watched. I am part of a prophecy claiming my choices will determine whether supernatural civilization survives. Yes. My grandmother tried preventing the same catastrophe through tyranny and failed. Yes. The first vampire may be close to escaping. Yes. Vampire factions are cooperating with werewolf alphas to keep me weak. Yes. And I have roughly 2 days to convince species that have hated each other for centuries to cooperate. Vera considered. That is surprisingly accurate. Lyra laughed once. And I'm poisoned. Yes. My abilities are collapsing. Yes. Half the alpha community wants me dead. That also appears accurate. Lyra covered her face. This is insane. Vera said nothing. I'm 23. Lyra looked at her. 6 months ago, I had no pack and no future. Now you're telling me I'm responsible for preventing an ancient vampire apocalypse. The prophecy has no interest in whether you feel prepared. Vera folded her hands. It only concerns itself with what you choose. Lyra lowered her arms. And the gathering is my first choice. Yes. Vera's eyes became serious. You can attend while weakened. Expose yourself to enemies. Attempt negotiation and trust that diplomacy may succeed. She paused. Or remain here. Consolidate your territory. Prepare for war. My grandmother would choose war. Your grandmother did choose war. Vera moved closer. And it killed her while accomplishing little besides making every other species more afraid of silver blood power. Lyra stared at the cave wall. You are not Isabella, Vera said. That is the point. What if I choose wrong? You might. Lyra looked at her. What if I go there trying to create peace and get killed? Then you will have failed catastrophically and possibly doomed us all. Lyra blinked. Vera continued calmly. But at least you will have failed while trying to become something better than the tyrant who preceded you. Lyra stared at her. That may be the worst motivational speech I have ever heard. I am an oracle, not a motivational speaker. Despite everything, Lyra almost smiled. Tell me about the gathering. Vera retrieved an old leather journal. Every major faction will send representatives. The meeting will occur at the crossroads. Neutral ground belonging to no species. She opened the journal. Vampires will be represented by Lady Seraphina Nightborn and members of her council. The witches will send the Coven of 3 Moons. King Aldrich will represent werewolves with whichever alphas he selects. What are they actually meeting to discuss? Officially? Yes. Maintaining supernatural stability. And unofficially? Vera looked at her. How to preserve their current positions while the world slowly tears itself apart. Lyra frowned. They know about the first vampire. Some do. And they're ignoring it. Acknowledging the threat would require cooperation. Vera shrugged. Cooperation requires sacrifice. Arguing over territory is easier. So I walk in and announce the apocalypse is coming? No. Vera's voice sharpened. You show them cooperation already works. Lyra listened. Show them the borderlands, the economic data, the low violence, the democratic councils. Show them that rejected wolves can build a thriving community without fear-based hierarchy. Vera tapped the journal. You offer proof instead of promises. And hope they don't kill me. The crossroads has rules. Vera smiled faintly. Ancient rules. No violence is permitted during formal proceedings. Any faction violating neutrality faces punishment from every other faction. That protects me during the meeting. Yes. What about before I arrive? No. After I leave? No. Lyra sighed. So I only need to survive traveling there, survive whatever political trap is waiting inside, then survive coming home. while poisoned. Thank you for reminding me. Vera's smile was completely unhelpful. Lyra looked at her hands. Those ordinary-looking hands supposedly carried enough power to either save or destroy supernatural civilization. She thought about Isabella, about 500 wolves who trusted her, about the creature waiting inside an ancient prison, and finally about Cade, the wolf who had rejected her, the mate bond she had spent months refusing to acknowledge, the alpha now secretly working with vampires against her. I need to see him. Vera raised one eyebrow. Who? Cade. Lyra turned. Before the gathering. Why? If I expect to convince supernatural leaders to work together, I need to understand why my own mate is cooperating with people trying to destroy me. Vera considered that. Either extremely wise or extremely foolish. Probably both. Do you want me to arrange the meeting? Yes. Vera nodded slowly. I can send word. I cannot make him come. He'll come. Lyra hoped she sounded more certain than she felt. The mate bond is still there. She looked into the shadows. Neither of us has managed to destroy it. Vera watched her, and if Cade arrives intending to finish what the poison started, something dangerous touched Lyra's expression. Then we find out whether I'm really as weak as everyone believes. Chapter 4. Cade's Redemption Arc. They chose a clearing on the boundary between Lyra's territory and neutral land. Neither alpha would hold the advantage of home ground. Lyra arrived before dawn. Commander Hayes accompanied her openly. Oracle Vera remained hidden nearby, carrying enough old magic that Lyra suspected she could erase half the forest if the meeting became violent. The poison had worsened overnight. Lyra's enhanced senses came and went unpredictably. The sharp pain had dulled into a constant ache she had almost learned to tolerate. Almost. Exactly on time, Cade emerged from the trees. Alone. His storm-gray eyes seemed brighter in the darkness. The mate bond reacted instantly. 6 months of denial had weakened it. The poison weakened Lyra. But the connection still pulled. Cade looked different. Thinner. Tired in a way sleep could never fix. And when he looked at Lyra, she recognized something she had never seen in him before. Regret. Lyra. His voice was rough. You look poisoned? She gave him a cold smile. Yes. Systematically inhaling suppression herbs for weeks tends to have that effect. Cade's face tightened. And here's the interesting part. Lyra stepped closer. The strain of poison inside me comes from a rare plant found in only 3 known regions. She held his gaze. One happens to be inside your territory. Cade went pale. You think I poisoned you? I think someone with access to the poison and a strong reason to weaken me did it. She tilted her head. You meet both requirements. Cade took a step toward her, then stopped. But I also know something else. Lyra's voice remained controlled despite the pounding of her heart. If you truly wanted me dead, you could have arranged something faster. Cade said nothing. So either you are remarkably incompetent at assassination. Her eyes hardened. Or you didn't order this. I didn't. His answer came immediately. I swear by the moon goddess Lyra, I had nothing to do with the poisoning. Then explain the vampires. Cade froze. Explain why you are meeting them. Explain why alphas who openly want me eliminated think you're cooperating with them. She moved closer. Explain why you've spent 6 months trying to make certain I fail. The question filled the clearing. Cade's jaw tightened. For a long moment he couldn't answer. Then his voice dropped. Because I'm terrified of you. Lyra stared. What? I'm afraid of you. He forced the words louder. Of what you are. Of what you make me feel. Of what it means that the moon goddess chose someone like you to be mated to someone like me. Lyra's expression did not soften. Cade stepped closer. 6 months ago, I rejected you because I couldn't tolerate the bond. His voice cracked. Every instinct I had told me to submit to you, trust you, let you see parts of me I had spent my entire life hiding. He looked away. I told myself you weren't suitable. Lyra remembered every word. I said you weren't strong enough. You did. Not powerful enough. Yes. Not alpha material. Lyra's mouth tightened. And then I became precisely what you believed was impossible. Cade looked at her. You became everything I feared. Lyra went still. A powerful alpha who doesn't need fear to lead. His hands clenched. You build instead of dominate. You show mercy without becoming weak. Cade laughed softly, bitterly. Wolves follow you because they believe in you. He looked toward the distant borderlands. Do you know what it's like watching you create something real while I maintain authority through inherited rank and supernatural pressure? Lyra remained silent. Do you know what it feels like to discover everything I was taught about leadership might be wrong? Then why fight me? Her question was immediate. If you know it works, why help vampires destroy it? Cade looked at her. Because I'm a coward. No excuse followed. Because destroying what you built was easier than admitting I wasted 30 years becoming the exact kind of alpha that creates the wolves who need your sanctuary. He sat heavily on a fallen log. The vampires approached me 3 months ago. Who? Lady Seraphina herself. Lyra's attention sharpened. She told me there was a prophecy, some threat that would eventually require supernatural species to unite. Then why work against me? Because she said the greatest danger was allowing werewolves to unite beneath another Isabella Silverblood. Lyra understood. She convinced you I was becoming my grandmother. She showed me records. Cade stared at the ground. Packs Isabella destroyed. Alphas she killed. Wolves who died resisting her. He looked toward Lyra's territory. Then she showed me what you had accomplished. 500 wolves. Yes. Democratic councils. Yes. Reformed pack bonds. Yes. Cade swallowed. She told me history was repeating itself, that you would begin with good intentions and eventually decide only you knew what was best. And you believed her. I wanted to. Lyra frowned. Cade looked directly at her. If you became a tyrant, then rejecting you was justified. If your system failed, I wouldn't have to acknowledge that mine already had. His eyes brightened with unshed tears. But I watched you. Lyra said nothing. Not the reports, not rumors. He stood. You. His voice softened. And nothing you've done resembles tyranny. He looked almost ashamed. It looks like hope. Lyra's anger shifted. It didn't disappear. But something else joined it. Then why are you still cooperating with them? Because I'm trapped. Cade's expression hardened with self-disgust. I made agreements, promised things. He looked around the clearing as though even the trees might listen. The vampires possess information about my pack, secrets that could destroy me politically if exposed. And the other alphas? They see me as their inside source. His jaw tightened. Someone connected to you through the mate bond. If you stop helping them, I become a liability. He stepped closer. For both sides. Lyra's gaze sharpened. I did not poison you. I heard you. But I know who did. Lyra went still. Cade's voice dropped. Marcus Ironwood. He's been working with a vampire faction that wants the supernatural world permanently divided. Lyra felt cold. They believe a united werewolf nation under Silverblood influence would challenge their territorial claims. So they weaken me before I become powerful enough to oppose them. Yes. Cade hesitated. And the gathering is a trap. Lyra's expression didn't change. Explain. Several factions intend to move against you simultaneously. Cade's voice became urgent. The laws of neutral ground protect you during the formal gathering. But not on the way there. Exactly. And not afterward. Cade shook his head. They've prepared ambushes along every likely route. He met her eyes. Even with your full power, it would be dangerous. His gaze dropped briefly, taking in her weakened body. Like this? He swallowed. It's suicide. Lyra felt the prophecy tightening around her. She could stay in the borderlands, fortify, wait, or enter a trap while poisoned and attempt something Isabella Silverblood had never achieved. Why are you telling me? Cade looked at her. If you're too deeply involved to withdraw, why warn me? He slowly reached toward her. He gave her enough time to refuse. She didn't. His fingers closed around her hand. The mate bond flared. Even weakened, Lyra felt his alpha strength resonate through the connection. Because therapy taught me something I should have learned years ago. Cade's voice became quiet. I can choose differently. Lyra listened. I can stop being the coward who destroys anything that makes him afraid. His grip tightened slightly. I can try to become worthy of the mate the moon goddess gave me. He looked directly at her. Even if she never forgives me. Lyra's throat tightened. I am not asking you to forgive me. Good. I don't deserve it. At least we agree. Cade almost smiled. I'm asking for permission to help you survive. Lyra's expression became serious again. How? Let me work for you instead of them, he continued. I know their plans, their roots, their factions, their weaknesses. Why should I trust you? The answer came instantly. Because the mate bond still exists. Lyra's eyes narrowed. You can feel me through it. Cade's voice was raw. Mate bonds don't make someone good. I know that. He breathed slowly. But you can feel whether I believe what I'm saying. Lyra could. I'm frightened. I've made terrible choices. I spent most of my life hurting people before they could get close enough to hurt me. He swallowed. But I am not evil. His storm gray eyes held hers. I'm lost. And you're the first wolf who ever made me believe I might find a way out. Lyra closed her eyes. The bond carried his emotional truth. At least his version of it. That did not mean Cade was suddenly safe. It did mean his information could be useful. Tell me everything. Relief crossed his face. Every detail about the gathering, Lyra continued. Every ambush, every faction, everything. She released his hand. After that, we'll decide whether this change of heart is real. Thank you. Don't. Cade stopped. If this is another manipulation, Lyra's voice became dangerously quiet. If you're using my weakened state to get close enough to finish what the poison started, you will not survive long enough to regret it. Cade nodded. Fair. He removed a leather folder from beneath his coat. I kept records. Lyra raised an eyebrow. Vampire factions, alpha conspirators, roots, plans. He opened it. All of it. They spread maps across the fallen log. The trap was complicated. Layers of deception had been built around Lyra's expected behavior. The main ambush is here. Cade pointed to the western road. They expect you to take the direct route in daylight, with maximum protection. Yes. Numbers. 20 wolves in concealment. Vampire scouts track movement and coordinate reinforcements. Lyra studied the terrain. What about the eastern pass? Cade looked at her. Considered too dangerous. Why? Cliff roads. He traced the route. They assume you won't risk them while poisoned. What if we travel at night? Cade's attention sharpened. With a small group instead of a convoy. Lyra nodded. We reach the crossroads before they understand we're missing. It could work. But the eastern pass is extremely dangerous even in daylight. Lyra gave him a humorless smile. So is walking voluntarily into 20 wolves and vampire scouts. She returned to the map. Besides, I spent 6 months gathering wolves everyone else considered failures. Cade looked at her. They have become exceptionally good at doing things powerful people assume they cannot. He studied her for a moment. You're truly going. Yes. Even knowing the gathering itself is a trap? Yes. Even poisoned? Yes. Why? Lyra looked at him. There's a prophecy. Cade went still. She told him. Not everything at first. Then enough. The first vampire. The weakening prison. Isabella's attempt to unite supernatural society. The crossroads between tyranny and cooperation. By the time she finished, Cade's face had changed completely. The first vampire is real? Apparently. I thought it was a story vampires used to scare children. So did most people. Cade stared at the documents. And some vampire factions are helping him return? At minimum, they're making certain no unified resistance exists. Lyra's voice hardened. Which means every alpha cooperating with them is contributing to species-wide suicide. They don't know that. Lyra looked at him. The alphas working with Marcus think this is about preserving traditional pack authority. They have no idea what the vampires are really preparing. Then I tell them. At the gathering? Yes. Lyra squared her shoulders against the pane. I show them the Borderlands works. I prove cooperation is possible. She looked at Cade. And I do it while poisoned, surrounded by enemies, accompanied by the mate who spent 6 months undermining me. Cade flinched. So here is the question. Lyra stepped closer. Are you actually helping me? The mate bond pulsed. Or are you easing your conscience before returning to the conspirators with everything I've just told you? Cade's conflict moved through the bond, the desire to change. The old instinct to protect himself. Finally, he answered. I'm helping you. Lyra waited. But I want something. Of course you do. Take me with you. She stared. To the gathering. Cade's voice strengthened. Let me stand beside you. He stepped forward. Let me publicly renounce the Alpha Coalition and support the Borderlands model. Lyra said nothing. I don't want to tell you I changed. He met her gaze. I want to prove it. Lyra's first instinct was refusal. Trusting Cade's intelligence was dangerous enough. Bringing him beside her into a gathering full of enemies was worse. Then, she understood the symbolism. If she wanted supernatural leaders to believe former enemies could cooperate, what stronger example could she offer than a rejected mate and the alpha who rejected her choosing to stand on the same side? One condition. Anything. You stop working with them now. Cade listened. No more meetings, no false alliances, no playing both sides. Lyra stepped closer. If you stand with me, you stand completely with me. Agreed. And while you're inside Borderlands territory, you obey my laws. Cade nodded. That includes the prohibition against using supernatural compulsion to maintain authority. He visibly disliked that one. But after a moment, agreed. Lyra's eyes hardened. And if you betray me again, Cade waited. I will make what happened in the arena look merciful. Understand? Yes. He held her gaze. I will not betray you again. His voice lowered. I swear it on our mate bond. The connection between them reacted. Sacred weight moved through it. Whatever else Cade might still be, he believed that vow. Lyra nodded. Then we have a deal. She looked at the map. We leave tomorrow at sunset. Small group, fast, Eastern Pass. Who? You. Me. Arya, Hayes, Vera. Cade nodded. The coalition will know I defected when I missed tonight's ambush coordination meeting. Good. Lyra's smile turned sharp. Let them rewrite their plans under pressure. The first rays of sunrise appeared over the trees. For the first time in days, Lyra felt the pattern around her shift. She remained poisoned, still hunted, still standing inside a prophecy where choosing badly could doom millions. But now she possessed information, a strategy, and an ally where an enemy had stood. It wasn't enough, but it was something Isabella had rarely possessed. One more thing, Cade said. Lyra looked back. Lady Seraphina told me something during our last meeting. What? The first vampire's prison is cracking. We know. She said there is only one force capable of repairing it. Lyra waited. Cade hesitated. A perfectly bonded alpha pair. Her breath slowed. Two true mates combining old magic through a completed bond. Lyra stared at him. She said Isabella never achieved it because she rejected genuine emotional connections. She trusted domination instead. Cade's voice dropped. But if two alphas who were true mates completed their bond without coercion, he didn't finish. He didn't need to. Lyra understood. The prophecy might not only concern the choice between cooperation and tyranny, it might require something her grandmother never possessed. A genuine bond powerful enough to channel the magic needed to save everyone. And the only wolf capable of creating that bond with Lyra was standing directly in front of her. The same wolf who had once rejected her. The same wolf now asking for another chance. Lyra exhaled. No pressure. Cade's smile was small, but real. No pressure at all. Chapter 5. The Betrayal from Within. The War Council assembled at noon. 30 hours remained before departure. Lyra gathered her inner circle inside the secure chamber beneath her tower. Old magical wards sealed every wall against supernatural eavesdropping. Around the table sat Arya, Commander Hayes, Oracle Vera, Elena, and Cade. His presence had earned several suspicious looks. No one had openly objected. Yet, Arya was the first. Let me understand this. She looked directly at Cade. You spent 6 months cooperating with vampires and alpha conspirators. Yes. You participated in efforts to undermine everything we built. Yes. You were involved with people planning Lyra's assassination. Cade's jaw tightened. Yes. And now we should trust you because you suddenly developed a conscience? No. Arya blinked. Cade remained calm. You should trust the intelligence. Verify everything independently. Whether you trust me personally is irrelevant. The hell it is, Hayes growled. Cade looked toward him. You're traveling with us, sleeping close enough to our alpha to attack her when she's vulnerable. Hayes leaned over the table. Your personal trustworthiness is extremely relevant. Then restrain me. Everyone stopped. Excuse me? Arya asked. Suppression cuffs, guards, magical restraints. Cade looked toward Vera. Whatever makes you comfortable. Vera's eyebrows rose. I'll submit voluntarily. Cade's expression didn't change. Use the intelligence, that's what matters. Oracle Vera studied him. An alpha volunteering for suppression is not a small gesture. I'm serious. Cade looked around the table. I will not stand by while supernatural civilization collapses because I was too afraid to help. Through the bond, Lyra felt his sincerity. But she also remembered something important. A wolf could mean every word today, and still choose differently tomorrow. We'll establish security later. She stopped the argument. Right now, intelligence. Lyra pointed toward the maps. Cade, start again. He unfolded the documents. As he spoke, Lyra watched everyone else. Arya wrote notes with mechanical precision. Hayes marked tactical locations. Elena occasionally asked questions about specific alphas. Vera watched Lyra, not Cade. Her ancient expression suggested she knew something Lyra didn't. The vampire scouts are the largest problem, Cade explained. They track movement differently from werewolves. How do they communicate? Blood magic, near-instant messages between scouts and ambush groups. Arya looked up. So even if we avoid the Western Road, they adapt when they realize we're missing. Correct. Unless, Arya said slowly, they have something else to follow. Hayes understood. A decoy. A convoy on the Western Road, Arya said. The real team uses the Eastern Pass. We would be dividing already limited forces, Hayes warned. That might be exactly why it works, Lyra said. Everyone looked at her. They know I'm weakened. They expect me to surround myself with maximum security. She pointed at the Western Road. We give them what they expect. Arya continued the thought. Closed carriage, heavy guard, visible route. And while they commit to the ambush, the real team reaches the crossroads. Cade considered it. It's possible. Hayes tapped the map. The decoy must be convincing. Enough fighters to look real. He hesitated. And someone inside the carriage. I'll do it. Every head turned. Elena sat at the far end of the table. Her voice did not shake. I'll ride in the carriage. Lyra stared. I'm close enough to your height and build to pass at a distance. Elena met her eyes. And I owe you something I will probably never fully repay. Her voice became softer. Let me protect you now. Lyra felt old pain twist inside her. One part of her wanted to refuse, simply because Elena wanted redemption. Another part recognized the plan made sense. And the 5-year-old girl still buried inside Lyra remembered a woman entering a dark cave and promising she wouldn't be alone. The ambush will be violent. I know. They intend to kill quickly. I understand. When they discover you aren't me, they may kill everyone anyway. I understand. Elena held her gaze. I volunteer. Hayes began changing the plan. Then the convoy needs genuine defenses. 40 wolves, mixed combat teams, fallback positions along the road. He marked locations. We make the enemy commit resources, buy time. Vera studied the eastern route. You'll need a guide. Arya looked at her. The cliffs are dangerous during daylight. At night and moving quickly, one wrong turn puts the entire group in a ravine. I know someone. Arya pointed to the mountain region. She joined us 3 months ago. Rejected wolf from one of the mountain packs. Experienced? She grew up on those roads. Lyra nodded. Then we have a framework. She addressed the room. Decoy leaves at dawn tomorrow. Highly visible. Western Road. She moved her finger across the map. Real group leaves at sunset. Light equipment. Eastern Pass. We should reach neutral ground shortly after midnight, Cade said. Before they expect us. Lyra looked around the table. This is dangerous. Nobody spoke. If the vampires identify the deception too early, people die. She looked at Elena. If the eastern route is worse than expected, people die. Her eyes moved to Cade. If the conspirators prepared something you don't know about, people die. She straightened. I am not ordering anyone to participate. Arya answered first. I'm going. Hayes nodded. So am I. Vera smiled dryly. I'm always going. Elena repeated. Decoy convoy. Finally, everyone looked at Cade. He did not hesitate. Wherever Lyra goes. The mate bond pulsed. Then it's decided. Lyra began assigning tasks. Arya, coordinate the decoy. She turned. Hayes, choose the real escort. Experienced wolves only. Fast, disciplined, quiet. Vera, prepare whatever protections you can for the mountain route. The oracle nodded. Cade. A knock sounded against the chamber door. Everyone froze. No one was supposed to interrupt this meeting. Hayes immediately placed his hand on his weapon. Who? A young male voice came from outside. Marcus Sterling. Lyra's eyes narrowed. I have urgent information about the gathering for Alpha Silverblood. Lyra exchanged looks with the others. Marcus Sterling had been one of the Borderlands' success stories, a rejected Alpha who arrived 2 months earlier after supposedly being cast out for refusing his former pack's traditions. He had proven useful. Helped organize the Democratic Council. Trained new arrivals. Had earned trust quickly. Perhaps too quickly. Let him in, Lyra decided. She looked at Hayes. Stay alert. The door opened. Marcus Sterling entered. Tall, dark-haired, intense enough that Lyra knew several pack members had developed hopeless crushes on him. His eyes scanned the chamber, then stopped on Cade. Something in his expression shifted. Alpha Blackthorn. Cade looked back. I did not expect you here. Circumstances change. Cade folded his arms. What information was important enough to interrupt this meeting? Marcus removed a sealed letter. This arrived by vampire courier an hour ago. He placed it on the table. It's addressed to Alpha Silverblood. His hands trembled. But the seal. Vera leaned closer without touching it. Her face changed. The cult of the first. The chamber became silent. They were supposedly destroyed centuries ago, Vera said. Apparently not, Lyra replied. She reached for the letter. Vera grabbed her wrist. Not yet. Lyra stopped. They weaponize correspondence. Let me examine it. Several minutes passed while Vera checked the parchment with magic. Finally, clean, Lyra broke the seal. The handwriting was elegant. The message was not. Dear Alpha Silverblood. She read aloud. Congratulations on surviving this long. The room tightened. Your grandmother survived for decades before we arranged her elimination. Lyra's fingers went cold. You have managed 6 months. Considering your circumstances, that is admirable. She continued. We are writing to inform you that your attendance at the crossroads has been anticipated. Arya's expression hardened. Every route you might travel, every ally you might recruit, every strategy you might attempt. Lyra read the next sentence. All have been considered. She paused. You are walking into a trap from which there will be no escape. Silence. But we offer an alternative. Cade's jaw tightened. Join us, Lyra continued. Accept that the first vampire's return is inevitable. Position yourself with the winning side. Her eyes moved faster. Assist us in preparing the supernatural world for his reign, and you will receive power in the new order. Her voice hardened. Resist, and you will die beside everyone still clinging to the obsolete fantasy of cooperation. She reached the final lines. The choice is yours. Decide before the gathering. The old world is ending. Lyra's hand tightened around the letter. The only question is whether you end with it. The signature read, The Council of First Blood. Arya took the letter next. The reactions around the room varied. Anger, fear. Cade showed something closer to guilt. They know, Hayes said. The decoy, the Eastern Pass, all of it. Not necessarily, Vera replied. Hayes looked toward her. The wording is intentionally broad. Every strategy may mean specific intelligence. She leaned back. Or it may be psychological pressure designed to make us abandon every plan because we assume they already know it. Arya turned toward Cade. Or there's a spy in this room. Cade's face hardened. It isn't me. Your oath means nothing, Marcus Sterling said. Cade's gaze snapped toward him. You betrayed Alpha Silverblood before. Why should anyone believe you won't do it again? The accusation was reasonable. Lyra hated that. Cade had access to everything. If he were still working both sides. Something about Marcus's wording bothered her. Not what he said. What he knew. Marcus. He turned. How did you know Cade was here? Silence. This meeting was confidential. Marcus blinked. We told no one outside this room that Alpha Blackthorn would attend. Something flickered across his face. Tiny, fast, even poisoned. Lyra's enhanced senses caught it. Fear. Then calculation. Then resignation. I saw him arrive. No, you didn't, Hayes said. Everyone looked at him. Cade entered through the shadow passages with Oracle Vera. Hayes moved slightly closer to Marcus. No one saw him. The chamber seemed colder. The only way you could know he was here, Lyra said, is if someone told you. Marcus remained silent. Or if you were monitoring this room. His hand moved slowly toward his jacket. Don't. Lyra's alpha command filled the chamber. Her powers were weakened. Not gone. Marcus froze. For several seconds, no one moved. Then he laughed. It sounded bitter. Broken. Of course you noticed. His shoulders dropped. I should have known better than to underestimate a poisoned Silverblood. Arya's hand went to her weapon. What did you do? Marcus stared at Lyra. I marked the room. With what? Blood magic. Cade went rigid. Vampire blood magic. Marcus nodded. A ritual that allows them to hear anything spoken inside a space marked with my blood. Hayes swore. They know everything. Yes. Lyra felt the betrayal far more sharply than she expected. She had always known infiltration was possible. But Marcus? A rejected alpha who had seemed to understand everything the Borderlands represented. Why? Her voice barely carried. You know rejection. Marcus laughed again. No. Lyra stared. I don't. His eyes met hers. I was never rejected. The story was fabricated. Arya went still. I was planted here. Marcus swallowed. 2 months ago. For whom? Hayes demanded. The Vampire Council. Lyra's chest tightened. My purpose was intelligence gathering and sabotage. He looked at the council table. I was a deep cover operative. Lyra studied him. Marcus gave a bitter smile. You want to know the worst part? No one answered. I started believing you. His voice cracked. The Democratic Council. Pack bonds based on trust. The community. He looked at Lyra. None of that was supposed to matter. His breathing became uneven. But it did. Then why continue? Arya demanded. Why not tell us? Marcus went very still. Because they have my sister. The anger in the room changed. She's imprisoned inside vampire territory. He spoke with controlled pain. She is the guarantee of my obedience. If I betray them, his voice broke. She dies. If I run? He shook his head. She dies. If I die without completing my assignment? His expression went empty. She dies. Marcus looked directly at Lyra. They planned for everything. Silence filled the chamber. Vera finally spoke. How much have they heard? Marcus closed his eyes. Everything said inside this chamber during the last 2 months. Hayes' face became grim. Including today. Yes. The decoy. Yes. The Eastern Pass. Yes. Elena acting as bait. Yes. Cade's jaw tightened. My defection? They know. Lyra asked the question she least wanted answered. The poison? They know exactly how weakened you are. Marcus hesitated. And? Lyra waited. The prophecy. Vera froze. The first vampire. His prison. The completed mate bond. Marcus looked down. All of it. Hayes exhaled. Then every plan is compromised before we make it. No. Lyra's voice cut through the despair. Everyone looked toward her. They can hear what we say. She studied Marcus. They cannot hear what we think. Arya understood first. Lyra continued. Marcus, you said you believed in what we're building. He met her gaze. Was that true? Yes. Completely? As much as anything in my life has been true. Lyra nodded. Good. Marcus looked confused. Because you're going to keep spying on us. Silence. He stared. What? You heard me. Lyra's expression became calm. You will continue sending information to the vampires. Understanding dawned on Vera's face. But from now on, Lyra said, you send exactly what we want them to receive. Marcus stared. False routes, manufactured plans, intelligence designed to make them prepare for the wrong threat. She turned to Vera. Can you control the blood link? Vera considered. A selective binding? Yes. Allow him to transmit approved information but nothing else? Yes. The oracle nodded slowly. Difficult. A faint smile appeared. But possible. Marcus looked between them. You would let me act as a double agent? I don't trust you. Lyra's answer was immediate. I trust Vera's binding. She leaned closer. And I trust that you want your sister alive. Marcus's face tightened. Help us survive the crossroads. Lyra lowered her voice. Help us win. He stared at her. And I promise we will bring your sister home. Marcus shook his head. They will kill her as soon as they suspect I changed sides. Not if we rescue her first, Cade said. Everyone turned. Marcus stared. You know where they hold hostages? Cade nodded. The Vampire Council showed me part of their security structure. They wanted a werewolf familiar with those systems. He looked toward Lyra. I can get inside. When? During the gathering. Cade pointed toward the map. Their attention will be split. Senior officials will be at the crossroads. Marcus looked almost afraid to hope. You would conduct a rescue while trying to survive the gathering? Arya answered before Lyra could. That is what this pack does. Marcus looked at her. We don't abandon victims. Arya's voice was firm. Your sister is a hostage. She leaned across the table. That makes her one of the people we protect. Something inside Marcus seemed to collapse. He sat down. I spent 2 months reporting on you. His face disappeared into his hands. I helped them identify weaknesses. He looked up. My intelligence contributed to plans designed to kill all of you. And your sister is still a hostage, Lyra said. Marcus swallowed. We will help her. What about me? That's more complicated. Marcus almost laughed. You'll face what you did. Lyra's voice remained calm. Whether you earn forgiveness is something you settle with this pack over time. She turned to the council. New plan. Everyone leaned forward. Vera, create the selective binding. Marcus feeds the vampires controlled disinformation. What do we tell them? Marcus asked. Lyra thought. That we've abandoned the gathering. Arya smiled. We're retreating into the borderlands. Exactly. Lyra looked at Hayes. You prepare the decoy, but no real details are discussed inside this chamber. Then Arya. You work with the mountain guide independently. Finally Cade. You map the vampire security network, every guard pattern, every route, every location where hostages are held. Cade nodded. Lyra's voice hardened. We are no longer going to the crossroads only to ask people to cooperate. She looked around the room. We're going to show them what cooperation can accomplish. Hayes stared. By conducting a rescue operation inside vampire territory, while simultaneously avoiding assassination at a supernatural summit. Yes, that's insane. That's why they won't expect it. Lyra stood. They expect us to spend every resource trying to survive. She looked toward Marcus. While they watch us struggle defensively, we remove their leverage. Arya's eyes sharpened. Not only Marcus's sister. Anyone else we can identify. Lyra nodded. The cult divides people through fear and blackmail. Her gaze moved across the room. My grandmother tried uniting everyone through force. She straightened despite the poison. Both methods rely on the same mistake. No one spoke. They assume the strongest bonds are created through domination. Lyra's voice softened. They aren't. She looked at Marcus. They're created when someone chooses to sacrifice for another person. We save his sister because it is strategically useful. She shook her head. But more importantly, because it is right. Her gaze met every council member. And we do it where supernatural leaders can see what real loyalty looks like. The atmosphere changed. Fear remained, but hope entered with it. 30 hours, Lyra said. That is all we have. She looked at them. Use every minute. Chapter 6. The supernatural war begins. The Eastern Pass looked designed to kill anyone foolish enough to attempt it. Lyra stood beneath the mountain as twilight disappeared. A narrow path twisted upward through cliffs veiled in mist. In several places, there was barely enough width for a single wolf. On one side stood unstable rock. On the other, nothing. A fall into darkness. Second thoughts? Cade asked beside her. Hundreds. Lyra stared upward. But no better options. Their group contained 6 travelers. Lyra, Cade, Arya, Commander Hayes, Oracle Vera, and Sage, the rejected mountain wolf, who knew the eastern route better than anyone in the borderlands. They carried only what was essential: weapons, medical supplies. Minimal food. Speed and secrecy were their advantages. Somewhere far to the west, Elena traveled inside the decoy carriage, surrounded by heavy guards. Marcus Sterling had already sent the vampires false information, confirming Lyra would be inside it. If everything worked, the conspirators would commit their forces to the wrong road. Sage looked toward the mountain. The beginning is the easy part. Hayes raised an eyebrow. Define easy. Wide enough to walk without turning sideways, mostly stable. She pointed upward. The middle section is called the Devil's Spine. Arya sighed. That already sounds wonderful. How narrow? At the smallest point? Sage considered. About 18 inches. No one spoke. Wind gusts come from multiple directions. Some rocks shift under weight. And if someone falls? Cade asked. Sage gestured over the cliff. Approximately 2,000 feet onto rocks. Arya looked at Lyra. Remind me why I volunteered. Because you're brilliant and reckless. Vera approached them after finishing protective sigils. Like everyone here. Her magic settled across Lyra's skin with an irritating itch. The wards will make you harder for vampire scouts to sense. Will they keep us from falling? No. Vera looked at them. My magic does not cure gravity or stupidity. She pointed toward the path. Stay focused. Then, do not look down. Cade glanced at Lyra. Very comforting. They started climbing. Sage led. Lyra followed. Cade stayed immediately behind her. Arya came next. Hayes and Vera brought up the rear. The first hour passed without incident. The road was dangerous but manageable. Lyra's senses functioned often enough to maintain balance, and strangely, the mate bond helped. Cade's presence behind her created a constant point of orientation whenever her own abilities flickered. Then Sage stopped. The Devil's Spine. Lyra looked ahead. The path narrowed into a thin strip of rock disappearing into mist. Sage turned. One at a time. She pointed to several stable sections. Do not follow until the person ahead reaches the next safe point. The rock cannot reliably support multiple bodies. Lyra stared into the darkness. 18 inches, less than 2 feet between safety and death. Her wolf reacted immediately. This is insane. Lyra silently agreed. We should have fought the ambush. Too late. Sage went first. She placed each foot carefully. Tested every stone. Kept one hand against the mountain. Within minutes, she disappeared into the fog. Your turn, Hayes said. Lyra inhaled, then stepped onto the Devil's Spine. The wind hit instantly. Violent gusts changed direction without warning. The rock shifted beneath her boots. The darkness beside her seemed almost alive with the knowledge of the enormous drop below. Don't look down. One step. Test. Another. Transfer weight. Move. Her enhanced balance flickered. That made everything worse. For several seconds she could sense every shift beneath her feet. Then suddenly she possessed only ordinary balance again. Twice she nearly leaned too far toward the edge. Through the mate bond, she felt Cade's growing fear. He waited behind her, unable to reach her, unable to help. Halfway across, the wind changed. A violent gust slammed into Lyra. At the exact same second, her silver blood senses disappeared. For 3 terrifying seconds, Lyra became an ordinary wolf standing on an 18-inch trail in near total darkness, while mountain winds tried to throw her from a cliff. Her foot slipped. Loose stone broke free. Her body tilted. And Lyra knew. She was falling. Then her abilities returned. Her reflexes exploded back into place. She caught the rock wall and slammed herself against it. Her heart pounded violently. Lyra. Cade's voice came through the darkness. Are you all right? Fine. She was not fine. Give me a second. Lyra forced herself to breathe. The prophecy returned to her mind. A crossroads. Choices. Challenges. How was she supposed to change the supernatural world if losing her power on a mountain path could kill her? Her wolf answered. By being stubborn. Lyra almost smiled. That she could do. She pushed away from the wall. Continued. Step. Pause. Step. Breathe. 15 minutes later, she reached stable ground beside Sage. The guide looked at her. That looked unpleasant. I'm alive. That counts. Lyra turned and watched Cade cross. He moved with controlled alpha confidence. Yet through their bond she felt how hard he concentrated. Arya crossed with surprising grace. Hayes approached the passage like a military exercise. Vera barely appeared affected at all. Ancient magic bent the wind around her. Once everyone gathered again, Sage nodded toward the wider path. That was the worst section. Arya exhaled. I'm so relieved, the rest only wants to kill us moderately. They continued. 3 hours into the journey, Vera suddenly stopped. Wait. Weapons appeared instantly. Lyra expanded her senses. Nothing. Then, a scent. Dead sweetness. Vampires. Cade's expression darkened. They found us. Marcus, Hayes growled. He got information through the binding. No. Vera's answer was immediate. My binding is absolute. Her eyes closed. Magic extended around them. They are not tracking our group specifically. What does that mean? Arya asked. They're monitoring the road. Vera opened her eyes. They placed scouts on every possible route. How many? Lyra asked. 6. Vera hesitated. Possibly 7. Location? The next switchback. Sage went pale. We can't retreat. No one needed an explanation. Crossing the Devil's Spine once had been terrible. Attempting it again in deeper darkness while being pursued would be suicidal. And forward means entering the ambush, Hayes said. Lyra studied the terrain. The trail was too narrow for maneuvering. No way to climb. No safe place to wait. We fight. Cade looked at her. But not where they want us to. Lyra turned to Sage. Widen anywhere beyond the ambush? About 50 yards afterward. Small plateau. Good. She looked at Vera. Can you create an illusion? Vera smiled. What kind? Our group continuing forward. Understanding appeared in the oracle's eyes. I can create something better. Cade caught on. A full false convoy. Vera nodded. The vampires attack the illusion. And leave their positions, Lyra said. We hit them while they're moving. Hayes considered it. Better ground. Surprise. Numbers? Arya asked. 6 vampires, Vera said. Sage lifted her blade. 6 of us. Cade looked at her. You said you weren't a fighter. I said I'm not much of one. Sage shrugged. I can still stab things. Vera looked offended. And apparently, everyone has forgotten the very angry ancient woman standing here. Arya smiled. 6 it is. Lyra felt something warm move through her chest. Every one of these wolves could have stayed safe. None had. Isabella had never understood this form of power. Positions. Lyra pointed. Sage and Hayes left side. Then, Arya, right side with Vera. She looked at Cade. You're with me in the center. Their eyes met. When the vampires commit to the illusion, we strike from 3 directions. Lyra's voice hardened. Fast. The group moved. Vera created the illusion. Phantom shapes resembling their party continued down the trail. The bait worked perfectly. 6 vampires emerged from concealment. Fast. Pale. Predatory. They rushed toward the false travelers. Lyra waited. Closer. Closer. Now. They attacked. The vampires understood the trap 1 second too late. Hayes killed the first with a silver blade through the heart. Arya moved with ruthless precision. Her twin daggers hit vulnerable points before the vampires recovered. Vera unleashed silver fire. Cade and Lyra fought together, without discussing it, without planning it. The mate bond synchronized them. When Cade's strength forced an opening, Lyra used it. When the poison slowed Lyra, Cade protected the gap. The battle lasted less than 90 seconds. 5 vampires fell. The 6th ran. "He's going to warn them," Hayes shouted. Lyra reached for her power. For once, the poison released its grip. Her silver blood abilities surged to full strength. She threw compulsion toward the fleeing vampire. Not a wolf, a vampire. It should not have worked. The vampire froze. Lyra stared. So did everyone else. Isabella's power had never been limited to werewolves. Apparently neither was Lyra's. "Come back." The vampire turned. Against his will, he walked toward her. His crimson eyes were enormous with terror. Lyra held the compulsion despite the poison already clawing at her power again. "Who sent you?" "The Council of First Blood." "Who told them we used this route?" "No one." He struggled. "They have seers." Vera's expression changed. "Witches?" "Yes." The vampire gasped. "They see possible futures. They saw you on different roads." "How many ambushes?" 3. He fought for breath. "Western Road, Southern Valley, here." "Were you ordered to kill me?" "No." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "What were you ordered to do?" "Delay you." "Why?" His face twisted. "The ceremony." Lyra felt her stomach drop. "What ceremony?" "The awakening." His voice became a whisper. "When the first vampire rises, he requires powerful blood." Cade went still. "To complete the transformation." Lyra already knew the answer before asking. "What blood?" The vampire looked at her. "Silver blood. Your death will complete his resurrection." The poison surged. Lyra's power disappeared. The vampire stumbled free of the compulsion. Hayes immediately placed a silver blade against his throat. "What do we do with him?" Lyra's first thought was simple. Kill him. No witness. No one to report their route. Then she remembered what she was trying to prove. "We take him." Cade looked at her. "He's evidence." Lyra nodded. "At the gathering he testifies. He'll slow us. Then we move faster." Lyra looked at the bodies. "Vera. Can you remove the evidence of this fight?" "Yes." The oracle frowned. "It will cost considerable magic. If another ambush appears?" Lyra looked toward the trail. "There shouldn't be another." Hayes didn't look convinced. They placed one team on each likely route. She hoped she was correct. They chained the prisoner with silver and continued. The descent was faster, still dangerous. Lyra's abilities kept failing. 2 hours later, Vera's communication crystal flashed. "Elena." She activated it. Static hissed. Then Elena's voice came through, strained. "Lyra, if you can hear me." The ambush was larger than expected. Distant howls and gunfire echoed behind her. 50 wolves. Lyra stopped walking. "We're holding them, but they identified the carriage as a decoy faster than we planned." "Elena, they've sent trackers toward the other routes." Hayes' expression hardened. "You need to move." Elena's breathing was ragged. "They'll know you took the Eastern Pass within an hour." Then another voice sounded faintly through the crystal. Elena spoke again. "There's something else." Lyra listened. "Someone arrived here claiming to be Marcus Sterling's sister." Everyone went still. "She says the entire rescue plan is another trap." "Marcus's sister. She says Marcus was supposed to lure you into vampire territory during the gathering." Static exploded across the connection. "Elena?" "Nothing." "Elena!" The crystal went dark. Vera examined it. Jammed. Arya's expression was tight. "If that really is Marcus's sister, she might be warning us," Cade said. "Or manipulating us," Hayes countered. Before anyone could decide, a howl rose behind them, then another ahead, then a third from the valley below. Sage turned pale. "Tracker calls." Lyra extended what remained of her senses. Signatures appeared. Many. Too many. Vampires. Werewolves. Approaching from multiple directions. They had escaped one ambush, only to become the target of a coordinated pursuit. How far to neutral ground? Lyra asked. 2 hours if we move normally. Lyra heard another howl. Closer. Then we stop moving normally. She turned toward everyone. Run. Forget stealth. Her eyes hardened. We run until we reach the crossroads. She looked toward the darkness behind them. Or until they kill us. Chapter 7. The Choice. Love or Duty. Running down a mountain in darkness, while dozens of supernatural predators hunted them, was an experience Lyra never intended to repeat. Her abilities flashed on and off so rapidly that the world seemed to change every few seconds. Enhanced sight, ordinary darkness, perfect balance, then nothing. Each failure made her stumble. Only Cade's presence through the mate bond kept her oriented. They're closing, Hayes shouted from the rear. How many? Lyra's lungs burned. 30 vampires. He looked downhill. 40 wolves positioning around the valley. Lyra almost cursed. We cannot outrun that. No! Sage pointed ahead. The crossroads entrance is approximately a mile from the valley floor. Arya looked toward it. Open ground. No cover. Cade stopped. Look. Torches appeared below. Organized. Deliberate. Enemy forces were not simply chasing them. They were building a perimeter. Every path toward neutral ground was closing. Except one. The central approach, Arya said. Her face darkened. They're pushing us toward it. Hayes understood. A killing field. The open route allowed enemy forces to concentrate everything in one place. If we cross that ground, Arya said, they destroy us before we reach the barrier. Vera searched for another solution. My magic could conceal stationary targets, not 6 people running across open terrain, Cade said. No. Hayes looked at the vampire prisoner. Hostage? The prisoner laughed bitterly. The Council of First Blood would kill me themselves if it stopped her. He looked at Lyra. They consider individuals irrelevant. Lyra's mind raced. Fight? Impossible. 10 to 1. Hide? Impossible. Run? They were slower. Only one option remained. And she hated it. Cade. He looked at her. You take everyone north. His expression immediately changed. No. Circle around the perimeter. No. I distract them. Absolutely not. It's the only route. It's suicide. Cade stepped directly in front of her. You're poisoned, exhausted. Your abilities barely function. I only need to hold them for a minute. You won't survive 30 seconds. I don't have to. Everyone stared at her. Lyra spoke quietly. The prophecy says a silver blood must reach the crossroads. Vera's expression hardened. It doesn't say I survive afterward. Stop. Maybe I'm not meant to. Lyra. Maybe my purpose is getting the right people there with the right evidence. Vera shook her head. That is not how prophecy works. You don't know that. I know you cannot complete a destiny after you die. Unless my death is part of completing it. Cade went pale. Lyra continued. My grandmother chose domination. Her eyes moved over her pack. Maybe I prove something different through sacrifice. She looked toward the enemy lights. You can take the evidence to the gathering. No. You expose the cult. No. You convince them to cooperate. No. Cade's voice cracked across the clearing. Stop. Everyone fell silent. Lyra looked at him. You do not get to decide this alone. I'm the alpha. Yes. This is my pack. Yes. My responsibility. And you are my mate. The declaration stunned everyone. Cade stood before her, breathing hard. You are my mate. His voice dropped. Not the bond I rejected. He moved closer. Not the political problem I threw away. His eyes held hers. You. Lyra's throat tightened. And I will not stand here and watch you die. The mate bond does not give you authority over my tactical decisions. The hell it doesn't. Cade took her shoulders. 6 months ago, I rejected you because vulnerability terrified me. His hands trembled. I spent my entire life believing that needing another person made me weak. He looked into her eyes. And what did that belief give me? Lyra didn't answer. 6 months watching you build something beautiful while I hid inside my own cowardice. His voice became rough. I went to therapy. Lyra knew. I did the work. He swallowed. I examined every ugly part of myself. His eyes shone. And I started rebuilding those pieces in ways that didn't hurt everyone who cared about me. He took a breath. And there is one thing I know now. Lyra's heart pounded. I love you. Cade did not look away. Not because a bond tells me to. Lyra's eyes burned. Not because of prophecy. His voice broke. Not because the moon goddess decided something for us. He tightened his grip. I love you. The stubborn wolf who refused to stay broken. He smiled through the pain. The brilliant alpha who showed me strength does not require cruelty. Lyra struggled to speak. Cade. I'm not finished. He lowered his voice. You told me trust mattered. She remembered. You said you could never trust me not to reject you again. He nodded. You were right. The enemy howls were drawing closer. But I'm asking for trust now. Lyra stared at him. Not forgiveness. He shook his head. Not your love. His voice became almost a whisper. Your life. He released one shoulder and took her hand. Trust me with your life. How? Lyra looked toward the approaching lights. How exactly do you intend to save us? The bond. Everyone became still. Vera said a completed bond can combine power. Lyra stared. Cade continued. We never completed ours because neither of us trusted the other. His eyes hardened with resolve. But if we do it now, Lyra understood. I gain access to your alpha strength, and I gain access to your silver blood power. Vera's expression became intensely focused. A fully completed silver blood alpha bond. Arya looked between them. Would it be enough? Vera considered. It could be. Hayes frowned. How much? Enough to break this entire battlefield. Everyone went quiet. But, Vera said, completion requires complete vulnerability. Arya understood the problem. No emotional barriers. None. Vera looked at Lyra. Total trust. Lyra stared at Cade. Really stared. Past the alpha. Past the pride. Past the man who had humiliated her. She saw the frightened wolf who had spent 30 years learning the wrong lessons. And who had spent 6 months trying to unlearn them. She thought again about the prophecy. Love or duty? Perhaps everyone had interpreted the choice incorrectly. Maybe she wasn't supposed to choose Cade instead of the world. Maybe she was supposed to understand that saving the world could require trusting someone enough to love them. The completion will make us defenseless while it happens, Lyra said. Hayes immediately responded. We form a defensive circle. Vera shook her head. It could take several minutes. Then we hold several minutes, Arya said. Lyra looked at her people. Hayes, Arya, Vera, Sage. Even the vampire prisoner. Every one of them had risked death following her. Then Cade. The mate she had every reason never to trust again. If we complete it, Lyra told him, there is no undoing it. I know. We're permanently connected. Good. You'll feel everything. Yes. Everything I hide. Yes. No walls. Cade's voice became calm. I'm done with walls. Another howl. Very close. 3 minutes, perhaps less. Lyra made her choice. Form a defensive perimeter. Weapons appeared. She faced Cade. And try not to run when you see how damaged I actually am. He smiled faintly. I have enough damage of my own. They knelt in the center. The others surrounded them. Vera began chanting in an ancient language. Magic thickened the air. This will hurt, she warned. A rejected mate bond repaired and completed is like breaking a bone again so it can set correctly. Lyra looked at Cade. Nothing about us has ever been gentle. She held out her hands. Why start now? Cade took them. The mate bond ignited. This time, neither pulled away. They opened themselves to it. And pain swallowed Lyra. Cade's emotions flooded into her. Decades of loneliness, fear, pressure, self-hatred. She felt every memory that had taught him vulnerability meant danger. She felt the terror he had experienced when he first recognized her as his mate. And beneath all of it, love, raw, fierce, almost frightened by its own intensity. Cade received Lyra in return. The humiliation of rejection, Elena's betrayal, the rage Lyra had carried like armor, her constant fear that Isabella's blood would turn her into Isabella's reflection. He found Lyra's love too. Hidden, protected, but alive. They felt everything. The bond tore through every wall. It was terrifying, intimate, almost unbearable. Then, fighting erupted around them. "Contact!" Hayes roared. Silver blades flashed. Vera tried maintaining the bonding ritual while throwing defensive magic toward attackers. Arya fought with lethal precision. Sage defended the circle with desperate courage. But there were too many enemies. "Almost there!" Vera shouted. A vampire broke through. Hayes turned too late. The attacker moved directly toward Lyra and Cade. Then the vampire prisoner launched himself between them. Silver chains burned into his own body as he tackled the attacker. Hayes stared. Why? The prisoner struggled against his former ally. "I'm tired," he gasped, "of being on the wrong side of history." Then the bond completed. Power exploded. Silver light blasted outward from Lyra and Cade. Every enemy within 50 feet was thrown backward. Lyra felt Cade's strength enter her. Cade felt silver blood magic open inside him. They remained two wolves, yet functioned as something greater. Lyra stood. Cade rose with her. Their joined hands glowed. "Run." Lyra's command rolled across the clearing with the force of two alpha powers. Even vampires staggered. "Run, now." Her eyes shone silver. Or stay and discover what happens when you corner a bonded silver blood pair. The intelligent attackers fled. The cult loyalists stayed. They lasted less than 30 seconds. Cade's combat instincts guided their bodies. Lyra's magic amplified every movement. The mate bond let them anticipate one another before either acted. When the final attacker fell, the clearing became silent. Hayes stared at them. That. He slowly lowered his weapon. "He was the most terrifying thing I have ever seen," he considered. "And the most impressive." Lyra looked at her glowing hand. The poison remained inside her. She could feel it suppressing her silver blood abilities. But Cade's strength now flowed around the weakness. And Cade possessed access to magic no traditional alpha had ever carried. The crossroads. Lyra looked toward the valley. "We can reach it." Vera stared at them in something close to awe. "Child." Lyra looked back. "You may now be the most powerful supernatural entity in this hemisphere." Vera paused. "Possibly the world." Cade squeezed Lyra's hand. "Then let's show them what cooperation looks like." They ran toward neutral ground. This time, they were no longer fleeing. Chapter 8. The Gathering at the Crossroads. The crossroads existed between territories. No species owned it. Ancient magic protected its neutrality, and binding laws prohibited violence during formal proceedings. Standing stones marked the entrance. Werewolf runes intertwined with vampire sigils. Witch markings crossed symbols from older supernatural civilizations. Lyra's group passed through the barrier 3 minutes after midnight. The first session had already begun. The timing could not have looked more dramatic if they had planned it. Inside, the main hall formed a vast circle carved from living stone. Delegations occupied different sections. Werewolves to the east, vampires to the west, witches to the north. Other species filled the remaining tiers. At the center sat three primary representatives: King Aldrich, Lady Seraphina Nightborn, High Priestess Morgana. Seraphina was speaking when the doors opened. "Cannot allow unilateral action without," she stopped. Every face turned toward the newcomers. Lyra knew what they saw. 6 exhausted travelers covered in dirt and blood, a vampire prisoner restrained by silver chains, and in the middle, 2 alphas holding hands, still glowing with the residual energy of a newly completed mate bond. Silence consumed the chamber. King Aldrich rose. His ancient eyes moved over Lyra and Cade. Alpha Silverblood. His voice was formal. "You're late." Lyra nearly laughed. "And you appear to have brought violence onto neutral territory." "The violence occurred outside your neutral barrier." She entered the chamber. "We were attacked repeatedly on the journey." Whispers spread. Werewolf and vampire forces coordinated to prevent us from reaching this gathering. Seraphina's expression remained smooth. "That is a significant accusation." Her crimson eyes rested on Lyra. "Do you have evidence?" "We brought him." Hayes pushed the prisoner forward. "A member of the Council of First Blood, captured during an attack on the Eastern Pass." The hall erupted in murmurs. For many delegates, the Council of First Blood was little more than legend. Seraphina looked at the prisoner. "I recognize no such organization." Her voice remained cold. "He could be anyone." "He could," Lyra nodded. "Except Vera confirmed his testimony under truth magic." Seraphina's eyes moved briefly toward the oracle. "And he knew about the awakening ritual." The murmurs stopped. "The what?" Aldrich asked. "The ritual intended to free the first vampire." Chaos erupted. Delegates shouted denials. Others demanded proof. Several accused Lyra of fabricating the story. Aldrich raised his hand. The chamber gradually quieted. "The first vampire has been sealed for 3,000 years." He looked at Lyra. "Even if the prison were weakening, a single ceremony could not release him." "Not a single ceremony," Vera said. She moved forward. "A coordinated sequence of rituals at multiple supernatural power nexuses." Her gaze moved toward Seraphina. "One nexus happens to sit beneath the central temple of the Vampire Council." For the first time, Seraphina lost control of her expression. Only briefly. But Lyra saw it. "How? How do we know?" Lyra interrupted. "Because your people made mistakes." She removed Cade's documents. Attacking a silver blood traveling to a peace summit was one. She spread papers across a table. Using suppression poison with an identifiable magical signature was another. More documents followed. Cooperating with werewolf conspirators who kept written records was especially helpful. Several alphas shifted uneasily. "We have evidence of treaty violations, conspiracy, attempted murder." Lyra looked around. "And preparations for what amounts to species-wide genocide." Alpha Marcus Ironwood stood. "You have the claims of a paranoid revolutionary." Lyra turned. "The same wolf who created a separatist territory to destroy traditional authority." Marcus gestured toward her. "Her grandmother nearly destroyed us." He pointed toward the glow surrounding Lyra and Cade. "Now look." His voice rose. "Unnatural power. A mate she once rejected dragged into some forced bonding ritual." Cade's expression darkened. Marcus continued. "She arrives with accusations against respected leaders and expects us to submit." He looked across the delegates. "This is Isabella Silverblood again." The accusation landed. Lyra felt suspicion spreading through the chamber. Some delegates who had been listening now looked afraid. Then Cade stepped forward. "Marcus is right about one thing." Lyra looked at him. Everyone did. "Lyra is powerful." Cade released her hand. More powerful now than she was yesterday. He faced the gathering. With our bond complete, we could probably dominate every wolf in this room if we chose to. That did not reassure anyone, Cade continued. The question is whether we would. He looked toward Lyra. 6 months ago, I rejected her because this was exactly what I feared. The chamber grew quiet. I convinced myself she would become Isabella. Cade looked toward the alphas. That power would inevitably turn her into a tyrant. His voice hardened. I was wrong. Marcus scoffed. Cade ignored him. I spent 6 months watching the borderlands. He pulled out Arya's reports. 500 rejected wolves. He held up the papers. Outcasts, rogues, people traditional packs threw away. Cade looked at the delegates. What did Lyra do with them? He opened a report. She created a democratic society with lower violence than comparable traditional packs. Another page. An economy outperforming territories twice its size. Another. Pack bonds based on choice. His gaze returned to Marcus. You want to discuss tyranny? Cade's voice sharpened. Discuss packs that reject mates because they are politically inconvenient. Several alphas bristled. Discuss wolves forced to accept relationships they don't want. He stepped closer to Marcus. Discuss supernatural coercion used every day to keep people obedient. Marcus's jaw tightened. Lyra is not becoming Isabella. Cade turned back. She is becoming something Isabella never understood. His eyes found Lyra's. A leader whose people stay because they want to. And that is why so many of you are terrified. The chamber became silent. Lyra felt gratitude move through the completed bond. Seraphina finally spoke. Beautiful speech. Her eyes were cold. But it does not address the question. She looked toward Lyra. If the Council of First Blood truly intends to release the progenitor, what do you propose? Cooperation. Several delegates laughed. Lyra continued. Werewolves, vampires, witches, every species capable of helping reinforce the prison. Vincent Shadow scoffed. We can barely tolerate sitting in the same hall. I'm not asking you to like each other. Lyra looked toward him. I'm asking you to survive. The laughter stopped. If the first vampire escapes while everyone remains divided, territory becomes meaningless. Her voice carried across the chamber. He will not care which species owns which mountain. She looked toward the vampire delegation. He will not care which bloodline is ancient. Toward the alphas. He will not care who holds rank. Then, she speaks truth. High Priestess Morgana stood. Every eye turned. My seers have seen the prison failing. Seraphina's face became unreadable. We estimated catastrophic collapse within 5 years. Morgana's gaze sharpened. Recent magical disturbances shortened that timeline. She looked directly at Seraphina. Someone has been draining power from the seals. The chamber went completely still. Seraphina rose. And then, yes. A collective breath passed through the hall. I have been helping free him. Even Lyra had not expected an open confession. Aldrich stared. Why? Seraphina's expression was almost emotionless. Because the alternative is worse. She walked to the edge of the platform. The prison is not simply weakening, it is failing from within. She addressed the room. We cannot maintain seals that are structurally collapsing. Morgana watched carefully. The first vampire will escape eventually. Seraphina continued. Whether we assist him or not. Her crimson gaze swept the delegates. So I chose control. Lyra's jaw tightened. Control? Better to determine when he awakens. Seraphina's voice was perfectly calm. Better to negotiate before his release. Aldrich understood. You intend to feed him other species. The vampire leader looked toward him. I intend to preserve mine. You would offer werewolves and witches as sacrifices, if required. Disgust spread through the chamber. Seraphina lifted her chin. Do not pretend you would never sacrifice another species to prevent your own extinction. There is always another choice. Lyra's voice cut through the room. Serafina looked at her. My grandmother faced catastrophe and chose domination. Lyra stepped forward. You face catastrophe and choose betrayal. She stopped beside the central platform. There is a third path. Morgana leaned forward. Which is? We repair the prison properly. Serafina almost laughed. It has resisted every repair for centuries. Because everyone keeps treating a temporary solution like a permanent one. Lyra felt Vera's ancient knowledge and Cade's tactical thinking moving through the completed bond. The original prison was never meant to last forever. Morgana's eyes widened. A convergence. Vera nodded. Serafina's expression shifted. Those rituals haven't succeeded in more than 1,000 years. Because they require cooperation. Lyra looked around the chamber. Which is precisely why this gathering matters. She spread her arms. Every necessary species is already here. She looked directly at them. If we cannot cooperate while facing mutual extinction, perhaps extinction is what we deserve. Serafina narrowed her eyes. And the focus? Lyra waited. The energy required for a convergence of that scale needs a conduit. Morgana looked toward her. Something capable of receiving power from multiple species without collapsing. Lyra took Cade's hand. A completed silver blood mate bond. Whispers swept the hall. Vera stepped forward. Isabella had extraordinary strength but never created a true equal bond. She looked at Lyra and Cade. These two possess combined silver blood power and traditional alpha magic. Morgana's face became thoughtful. A living conduit. Yes. Vera's voice was grim. It could kill them. Cade squeezed Lyra's hand. But it could work. Arguments broke out everywhere. Marcus called it manipulation. Several vampires accused Serafina of treason. Other delegates doubted a convergence could be coordinated. Lyra let them shout. Then, I'm not asking you to trust my bloodline. Her voice cut through the chaos. I'm asking you to look at evidence. Silence returned. We brought proof. She pointed to the prisoner. We brought witnesses. She pointed to the documents. We brought a solution that does not require one species sacrificing another. Lyra looked around. My grandmother tried forcing unity. Her voice softened. She created hatred. She looked toward Serafina. The cult creates division through fear. Then, toward everyone. I'm offering neither. Voluntary cooperation. She took a breath. It may fail. No one moved. It may kill us. Cade remained beside her. But it is better than tyranny. Her eyes moved to the vampire delegates. And it is better than feeding each other to a monster. Vincent crossed his arms. And if we refuse? Lyra looked at him. Then, when the first vampire consumes you, at least you'll know you chose pride over help from someone you considered beneath you. The brutal answer silenced him. King Aldrich slowly stood. A vote. Every delegate watched. All who support a coordinated convergence to reinforce the prison. Silence. Then Morgana stood. The witch covens vote yes. A vampire delegate rose next. The northern clans vote yes. Serafina turned sharply. We did not join the Council of First Blood, the vampire continued, and we have no intention of becoming food for our progenitor. Another delegate stood. Then another. Werewolves. Vampires. Other species. Not everyone. Marcus Ironwood remained seated. Several vampire factions stayed with Serafina, but more than half the chamber rose. Enough power. Enough representation. Finally, Serafina stood. The Central Vampire Council abstains. She looked at Lyra. But we will not interfere. Aldrich nodded. Then we have sufficient consensus. He turned toward Lyra and Cade. The convergence will proceed. His expression became solemn. Alpha Silverblood and Alpha Blackthorn will serve as the primary focus. Morgana stood beside him. I will coordinate the ritual, Aldrich exhaled. And may whatever gods remain have mercy on us if we fail. The gathering immediately transformed into strategy. Committees formed. Magical specialists began calculations. Lyra finally allowed herself to breathe. Cade found her hand again. Still believe cooperation is possible? Lyra looked around at species that had spent centuries mistrusting one another and were now planning how to save each other. We convinced mortal enemies to cooperate against an apocalypse. She smiled tiredly. I'd call that evidence. Cade smiled. Now we only have to survive channeling enough power to seal an ancient vampire. Details. One mistake could make our bodies explode. Minor details. Cade laughed. But Lyra felt the truth beneath the humor. The ritual could save everyone. It could also obliterate them. No pressure. Chapter 9. The Final Battle. The convergence would begin at dawn. 4 hours earlier, Lyra stood inside the chamber of binding beneath the crossroads. The underground space was enormous. Its ceiling opened toward the sky, allowing moonlight and sunrise to reach an ancient ritual circle carved into stone. Lyra stared at the symbols. They would either save supernatural civilization or become the place everyone died. Second thoughts? Vera appeared beside her. Approximately 100. Lyra looked at her. Give me a real answer. That sounds dangerous. What are the odds Cade and I survive? Vera was silent long enough to make Lyra regret asking. If everything proceeds perfectly? Yes. 70%. Lyra almost relaxed. If complications occur? Vera tilted her head. And complications always occur. Yes. 40. Lyra stared. And sabotage? Vera shrugged. We probably die. Wonderful. Vera's face remained serious. But you would die preventing the deaths of millions. Still not comforting. Footsteps filled the chamber. Morgana arrived with 12 witches, each specialized in a different magical discipline. They arranged crystals, herbs, bones, blood, and other objects of power around the central circle. King Aldrich entered with several alphas. Some had openly opposed Lyra less than a day earlier. Marcus Ironwood was among them. His face revealed nothing. Hayes stood near Lyra. I never thought I'd see them willingly enter the same ritual. Arya smiled. Wait for the vampires. They arrived moments later. Not Seraphina's loyalists. Clans from throughout vampire territory. Ancient nobles. Young fighters. Common vampires. All shared one motivation. They did not want their progenitor waking hungry. Even the prisoner Lyra's group had captured attended. His silver restraints had been removed. He had received temporary amnesty in exchange for cooperation. Morgana checked the chamber. One component remains. She looked toward Lyra. Where is Alpha Blackthorn? Here. Cade entered from a side passage. His body was covered in protective markings. He looked exhausted. Vera had spent hours reinforcing his mind and nervous system for the power he was expected to channel. He stopped beside Lyra. The completed bond stabilized instantly. They had been separated for less than 20 minutes. It had felt longer. Ready? Cade asked. No. Lyra looked at the ritual circle. You? No. Good. She took his hand. We're doing it anyway. Morgana called for attention. The convergence depends upon complete synchronization. The chamber quieted. Werewolves will contribute raw power through interconnected pack bonds. Weakness can sometimes become the strongest shield. She looked toward the vampires. Vampires will provide blood magic and death energy. Then the witches. We will weave those forces together. Finally, Lyra and Cade. You will receive the combined power through your mate bond and redirect it toward the prison. Cade's hand tightened. The bond must function simultaneously as filter and amplifier. Morgana looked at them. If successful, the seals may remain intact for another 10,000 years. Someone from the outer circle asked. And if we fail? Morgana's answer was clinical. If the first vampire awakens before completion, we die. The chamber became still. If the convergence collapses, magical backflow kills everyone in this room, she continued. If the focus pair loses concentration and their bond fractures, Lyra waited. They explode. Cade blinked. Morgana added, and likely destroy a significant portion of the continent. Silence. Any other questions? No one spoke. Excellent. Morgana pointed. Positions. 20 minutes remained until the moon reached its apex. Wolves formed concentric circles. Pack bonds interlocked. Vampires took cardinal positions. Crimson blood magic formed geometric patterns across the floor. Witches moved between them, making minute adjustments. Lyra and Cade stood in the center, hands together, both trying not to think about continental destruction. I need to tell you something. Lyra immediately shook her head. No. Cade almost smiled. What? No dramatic final words. Lyra, we survive. I agree. Then save it. He squeezed her hands, just in case. She sighed. Cade looked at her. 6 months ago, I was the worst version of myself. His voice stayed low. I was frightened, cruel, and incapable of accepting real connection without hurting the person offering it. Lyra listened. You could have destroyed me afterward. He smiled sadly. Most people would have said I deserved it. You certainly gave them evidence. But you didn't. His eyes softened. You built something better instead. The bond carried his emotion. You showed me what strength looks like. He swallowed. And you gave me a reason to want to become someone worthy of standing beside you. His voice became rough. So thank you. Lyra felt tears coming. For what? For believing broken wolves can change. Lyra shook her head. You were never broken. He raised an eyebrow. That seems generous. You were taught the wrong definition of strength. She smiled faintly. It took you too long to unlearn it. Fair. But you did. She squeezed his hands. You became someone I trust with my life. Cade's face changed. Lyra continued before she cried. Besides, you're permanently bonded to me now. He smiled. So? If I'm stuck with you forever, you need to survive so I can make that eternity properly difficult. Cade laughed. The sound eased the tension around them. Looking forward to it. Positions, Morgana called. The chamber quieted. 30 seconds. The witch circle began chanting. Ancient languages filled the underground space. 20 seconds. Werewolf pack bonds activated. Lyra gasped. Hundreds of connections touched her. Not forced. Offered. Strength given willingly. 10 seconds. Vampire blood magic ignited. Crimson light filled the chamber. 5. Vera's voice reached Lyra. Trust each other. Lyra looked at Cade. Trust the bond. Cade smiled. Trust that 2 imperfect wolves choosing cooperation are stronger than 1 tyrant trying to stand alone. 3, 2, 1. Begin. The power hit. Lyra almost screamed. Werewolf strength, vampire blood magic, witchcraft. All of it crashed into her at once, then through her. Searching for Cade through the mate bond. He received the same impossible flood. Their souls stretched around power never meant for 2 bodies. Hold! Morgana shouted. We are establishing the connection. Stable? Nothing felt stable. Lyra felt as though she was drowning and burning simultaneously. Only Cade remained constant, his consciousness wrapped around hers. Then visions appeared. The prison. Far beneath the earth. Seals cracked like broken glass. Darkness waited behind them. Not ordinary darkness. Something hungry, ancient, aware. The first vampire. A creature older than civilizations. If they failed, it would walk free. Channel. The witches redirected the flow. Suddenly Lyra and Cade became the funnel. Raw supernatural energy passed through their bond. Their combined will refined it, directed it. The prison responded. A crack sealed. Then another. Ancient symbols brightened. For one impossible moment, it was working. Then the sabotage began. Small disruptions entered the ritual matrix. Tiny. Almost invisible. One distortion would not matter. Dozens did. The pattern started collapsing. "We're losing containment," a witch screamed. "Hold formation," Morgana ordered. But power began turning against the participants. Werewolves screamed as bonds snapped under pressure. Vampires staggered when their own blood magic reversed. Stone cracked around the chamber. Lyra searched desperately for the source, then felt another consciousness inside the ritual. Not physically present, but connected through a participant. Seraphina. Lyra recognized her immediately. The vampire leader had linked herself through one of her loyalists, and she was redirecting the convergence. Not toward sealing the prison, toward breaking it. "If I cannot control his release," Seraphina's thought echoed through the magical connection, "then I will make certain he rises when my faction has the best chance of survival." "No," Lyra fought back. "You will kill everyone." Seraphina's response was cold. "Better a chance through strategic retreat than death through failed cooperation." The chamber descended into chaos. Participants collapsed. Power spiraled unpredictably. Lyra tried to maintain the convergence while fighting Seraphina. The poison still weakened her. Even Cade's strength could not compensate for everything. They were losing. If the matrix collapsed, everyone died. Then the first vampire escaped into a devastated world. Through their completed bond, Lyra felt Cade reach the same conclusion. One option remained. A terrible one. They could absorb the entire collapsing convergence themselves. No intermediaries. No woven matrix. No distribution. Two alphas would take everything. Then force the power directly into the prison. It would almost certainly kill them. No supernatural body was built to contain that much energy, but it might keep them alive long enough. "Do it," Cade thought. Lyra's heart broke. "It will kill us." "I know." His mental voice remained calm. "Everyone else lives." She felt his acceptance. "And the world survives." A pause. "Besides, I promised never to reject you again." Despite everything, Lyra nearly laughed. Cade somehow managed to turn mutual magical suicide into romance. On 3. Together? Always. 1, 2, 3. They opened the bond. Completely. Every fragment of uncontrolled energy rushed into them. Pain ceased having meaning. Lyra felt cells tearing. Bones vibrating. Her soul stretching around forces that should have erased it. Cade suffered the same agony. But the bond held. One purpose. One choice. Seal him. The chaotic energy obeyed. Not through elegance. Not through perfect ritual patterns. Through will. Through trust. Through two wolves choosing the same thing without coercion. The prison reacted. Cracks reversed. Ancient seals reignited. Layer after layer formed. The darkness inside recoiled. The first vampire was forced backward. Deeper. Contained beneath a prison now strong enough to endure another 10,000 years. Inside the chamber, Lyra and Cade became almost impossible to look at. Silver and gold light wrapped around them. Their mate bond was visible. A spiral of energy connecting two bodies carrying more power than any living beings should survive. The final seal closed. The prison stabilized. The threat ended. And Lyra knew she was dying. Cade knew too. Their hearts weakened. Their bodies had absorbed too much. Worth it, Cade thought. Lyra's consciousness dimmed. Yeah. She felt him fading beside her. Worth it. Then something unexpected happened. Every participant who remained conscious made the same decision. Wolves reopened their pack bonds. Vampires offered blood magic. Witches shifted from containment spells to healing. Species that had spent thousands of years learning to distrust one another worked together to save two wolves. The energy reversed. Instead of drawing power from everyone else, Lyra and Cade began receiving it. Controlled. Gentle. Healing. Life returned in small amounts. Perhaps it would not be enough. They had suffered catastrophic damage. But even if they died, Lyra realized something as darkness approached. They had succeeded. Supernatural species had finally learned to cooperate. Except, Lyra did not die. Neither did Cade. The combined healing magic stabilized their bodies. Their hearts continued beating. The mate bond, stretched nearly beyond its limit, slowly repaired itself. Lyra opened her eyes. Cade lay beside her, alive. His expression reflected the same disbelief. Then she looked around. The entire chamber stood in silence. Werewolves, vampires, witches. Every face turned toward them. Awe, fear, hope. Vera finally broke the silence. Well, her ancient expression looked suspiciously satisfied. That was dramatic. Chapter 10. The New World Order. Lyra woke 3 days later. She did not recognize the room. Healing runes glowed across the carved stone ceiling. Soft daylight entered through windows facing unfamiliar mountains. Then she looked beside the bed. Cade slept in a chair. His hand still held hers. He looked terrible. Unshaven. Exhausted. Clothes wrinkled as if he hadn't changed them for days. But alive. You're awake. Lyra turned toward the doorway. Vera stood there. Relief passed briefly across the oracle's face. How long? Lyra's throat hurt. 3 days. Vera entered. You and Alpha Blackthorn were unconscious through most of them. Most? You occasionally woke long enough to scream about channeling impossible amounts of magic. Lyra winced. Wonderful. The healers are fascinated. That makes me feel much better. You two rewrote several assumptions concerning mate bonds and supernatural energy. Lyra forced herself upright. The prison. Vera smiled. Come. She helped Lyra reach the window. In the distance stood a mountain wrapped in visible magic. Darkness pulsed deep within it. But unlike before, the darkness was contained beneath brilliant layers of protective energy. The first vampire's prison, Vera said. Stronger than at any point in recorded history. Lyra stared. Every participating species added additional reinforcement after you and Cade stabilized the foundation. It's terrifying? Beautiful. Vera nodded. Both. Lyra looked away. Politics? Vera sighed. Complicated. Meaning? Not hopeless. That surprised her. A council is waiting. Now? They have been remarkably patient. Vera's mouth twitched. Possibly because you are currently the most powerful conscious supernatural being alive. Lyra looked toward Cade. What about him? He will wake when his body is ready. Vera examined him. He channeled slightly less energy than you, but he began with fewer supernatural advantages. Her voice softened. The fact that either of you survived is remarkable. The bond. Yes. Vera looked at Lyra. Separately, both of you would have burned out within seconds. Lyra squeezed Cade's hand. Let him sleep. Vera raised an eyebrow. You're going to the council alone? I survived vampire conspiracies and an ancient apocalypse. Lyra carefully stood. How bad can politics be? The new council chamber was smaller than the ceremonial hall. Designed for negotiation instead of intimidation, representatives from multiple species surrounded an oval table. Aldrich sat at one end. Morgana sat beside him. The other side held a vampire Lyra had never met. Aldrich stood when she entered. Alpha Silverblood. King Aldrich. Allow me to introduce Lord Cassius Darkwater. The vampire inclined his head. Newly appointed head of the Central Vampire Council. Lyra stopped. Newly appointed? Yes. She looked around. Where is Lady Seraphina? Imprisoned. Cassius's voice carried an accent Lyra couldn't immediately identify. Sabotage. Conspiracy. Attempted genocide. Lyra raised an eyebrow. That was fast. Cassius smiled, revealing fangs. When evidence of her interference with the Convergence became public, alongside records connecting her with the Council of First Blood, even her strongest supporters abandoned her. He gestured toward the table. Vampire politics can be remarkably efficient when survival is involved. Lyra sat. She was almost certainly the youngest person present. Definitely one of the least experienced. But she had also just helped imprison an ancient vampire deity. Apparently that gave her a certain amount of credibility. Aldrich spoke first. On behalf of the werewolf community. He paused. Thank you. Lyra had not expected that. What you and Cade accomplished saved lives across every species. Morgana nodded. The Covens share that gratitude. She looked at Lyra. Your actions demonstrated that interspecies cooperation is not idealism. Her voice became firm. It is necessary. Cassius folded his hands. The vampire clans are also grateful. He paused. Although some are understandably concerned about you. There it was. Lyra leaned back. You're afraid I'll become Isabella. Silence confirmed it. Aldrich chose his words carefully. Your current abilities are unprecedented. Cassius continued. Silver blood heritage, completed alpha mate bond, exposure to convergence-level energy. His eyes sharpened. Our estimates suggest you could potentially command every werewolf in this hemisphere. He paused. Possibly any supernatural creature possessing sufficient magical essence. Lyra stared at him. That makes you, functionally speaking. Cassius smiled faintly. A goddess. Lyra almost groaned. And history has not always been kind when godlike beings acquire political authority. She could not argue. Isabella had possessed similar power, and Isabella had used it to dominate everyone around her. I don't want to rule any of you. Aldrich watched carefully. The Borderlands exists because traditional systems failed people. Lyra looked around the table. I never intended it to become an empire. Intent is not the only issue, Morgana said gently. Lyra turned toward her. In 3 days, 17 packs have requested information about restructuring themselves, according to Borderlands governance. Lyra blinked. 43 rejected wolves submitted sanctuary applications. Morgana continued. And several alphas have indicated they would willingly recognize your authority. Lyra looked at Aldrich. Because they saw what cooperation accomplished. Yes, Aldrich said. That is what I want to spread. Lyra leaned forward. Cooperation. Cassius studied her. Pretty philosophy. She narrowed her eyes. How do we know you will still believe it when your power grows? The question landed. Cassius continued. How do we know you will not eventually conclude forced cooperation is more efficient than voluntary agreement? Lyra was silent. Because there was no perfect answer. You don't. Several council members shifted. Lyra continued. You cannot know who I will be in 100 years. She looked around. Power corrupts. Aldrich watched closely. And I am not arrogant enough to declare myself immune. Lyra placed both hands on the table. But I can build accountability. Morgana's expression sharpened. How? Any major supernatural policy I influence goes through a multi-species council. Lyra counted. Any expansion of the Borderlands model occurs with review. Another finger. Any significant use of silver blood compulsion is documented. Then, publicly. Cassius leaned back. You would voluntarily restrict your own power. Yes. Why? Because I already know what happens when a silver blood decides accountability is unnecessary. Silence. My grandmother proved forced obedience creates rebellion. Lyra looked at Aldrich. Voluntary cooperation is slower. Then Cassius. Messier. Then Morgana. More frustrating. She smiled faintly. But it lasts. Aldrich asked quietly. And if we reject this? Lyra's expression changed. If we decide another Isabella is too dangerous. Cade's presence suddenly brushed through the mate bond from another part of the building. Still asleep. Still recovering. Yet instinctively responding to danger around Lyra. Aldrich continued. If we decide your abilities should be suppressed? Lyra's voice became cold. Then you prove no one learned anything. Aldrich held her gaze. My grandmother became paranoid partly because alphas saw her strength and tried to destroy her. Lyra stood. If you attack me because you fear I might become a tyrant. Her silver blood presence filled the room without compulsion. You create the exact conditions most likely to make me one. No one spoke. I don't want your territories. She moved toward the window. I don't want obedience. She looked at the mountain containing the first vampire. I want a society where rejected wolves don't require Borderlands sanctuary, because their own packs stop throwing them away. Lyra turned. I want species cooperating because it benefits them. She paused. Not because I commanded them. Her eyes moved around the room. Give me a chance to prove it. A long silence followed. Then Aldrich spoke. We prepared a counter-proposal. Lyra returned to the table. The Borderlands retains full autonomy. She listened. You retain the legal authority to accept any rejected werewolf seeking sanctuary. That was significant. In return, you accept a seat on a newly created supernatural council. Lyra frowned. As what? The werewolf representative for progressive reform, Morgana explained. And traditional packs? Have their own representation. Vampires? Representation. Witches? Yes. Other species? Yes. Cassius folded his hands. No single faction controls policy. Decisions? Consensus. Lyra almost laughed. That sounds slow. It will be excruciatingly slow. Cassius smiled. You will repeatedly become frustrated enough to consider commanding everyone into agreement. Comforting. But no faction, including yours, can dominate. Lyra thought. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't the complete transformation she might have demanded if she followed Isabella's example. It was compromise. Messy. Imperfect. Real. I accept. Aldrich relaxed slightly. With one condition. Of course the tension returned. Lyra continued. Sanctuary protection cannot be limited to werewolves. Everyone stared. If a vampire is cast out because they became politically inconvenient. Cassius's expression changed. If a witch is exiled for questioning her coven. Morgana leaned forward. They can seek sanctuary in the Borderlands. Aldrich stared. Multi-species integration? Yes. That has never been attempted. Neither had our convergence. No one immediately answered. Lyra continued. We proved species can cooperate during catastrophe. She looked around. Now let's see whether we can manage compassion when the world is not ending. The council exchanged looks. Finally Morgana spoke. Provisionally. Lyra waited. Each case reviewed individually. Legitimate criminals remain subject to extradition. Fair. Aldrich nodded. Then we have terms. He listed them. Borderlands autonomy. Lyra listened. Legal sanctuary rights. Then, creation of the Supernatural Council. And, limited multi-species asylum with oversight. Cassius smiled. And everyone desperately hopes this experiment does not explode. Several people actually laughed. Then Cassius's expression became serious. One more issue. Lyra looked at him. Marcus Sterling's sister. Her attention sharpened. She was indeed being held as leverage. Is she safe? Yes. Cassius nodded. She gave our investigators valuable information about cult operations. What does she want? Asylum. Granted. Immediately. Cassius continued. Marcus himself has requested permission to remain in your territory. That required more thought. Marcus had betrayed the borderlands. He had given enemies intelligence. His actions nearly got people killed. But he had acted with his sister's life held over him, and when given a genuine opportunity to change sides, he had taken it. Probation. Cassius waited. Supervision. Lyra nodded. But he stays. Why? Because redemption means nothing if we only offer it to people who never did anything wrong. The council continued for another hour. Details. Jurisdictions. Limits. Representatives. Nothing was completely solved. Lyra knew future conflicts were inevitable. But the foundations existed. When she returned to the healing room, Cade was awake. He sat upright, still exhausted, but alert. You attended the council without me. Excellent observation. He stared. You negotiated supernatural policy while I was unconscious. It seemed efficient. Lyra sat beside him. Congratulations. 4. You're now connected to an official multi-species council. Cade groaned. I hate politics. Too bad. She smiled. You permanently bonded yourself to someone who just accepted a government position. He pulled her closer. There are worse things. Lyra rested beside him. We saved the world. Cade's voice contained quiet disbelief. We actually did. Yes. Sealed the first vampire. Yes. Prevented an apocalypse. Yes. Made werewolves and vampires cooperate. Lyra looked at him. Technically, Morgana deserves considerable credit. Cade smiled. We also nearly died. Several times. But we didn't. No. He touched his forehead to hers. We survived together. Lyra felt warmth through the bond. 6 months ago, Cade whispered, I rejected you because I couldn't tolerate needing someone. He closed his eyes. Now I cannot imagine a life where I don't feel you here. Lyra smiled. Funny. Hilarious. They remained together in comfortable silence. Eventually Cade asked, What happens next? Home. The borderlands? Where else? Lyra squeezed his hand. We keep building. She looked toward the window. We work with the council, make compromises, become furious when decisions take too long. Cade smiled. Resist the urge to command everyone into agreement. That one may be difficult. And do it together? Lyra looked at him. Together. 1 year later, the borderlands barely resembled the refugee settlement Lyra had first created. She stood on the observation deck. The building was now officially called the Council Building. After an extended campaign, Lyra had finally convinced everyone to stop giving important structures royalty-adjacent names. 700 wolves lived there. But wolves were no longer alone. 36 vampires had received sanctuary, 12 witches, several members of other supernatural species. The elected council functioned well, mostly. Arguments still required alpha mediation occasionally. Trade had transformed the borderlands into a neutral commercial center, and most importantly, rejected beings were learning that exile did not mean their lives had ended. You're brooding again. Lyra smiled before turning. Arya joined her. She had become second in command. What is it today? Arya leaned against the railing. Worried about next week's supernatural council? No. Expansion proposals? No. New asylum applications? No. Arya waited. Lyra looked down at the settlement. I'm pregnant. Silence. Arya's mouth dropped open. You're what? Pregnant. Lyra turned toward her. Approximately 8 weeks. Arya stared. Vera confirmed it yesterday. Shock transformed into joy. Lyra. She grabbed her. Congratulations. Then she stepped back. Does Cade know? Not yet. Arya's expression became scandalized. You told me first? I needed to process it. Lyra placed a hand over her still flat stomach. A silver blood child. Arya's expression softened. 2 alpha parents. Lyra looked worried. A completed bond. Probably absurd supernatural abilities. Exactly. Lyra stared toward the borderlands. My grandmother's obsession with power destroyed her. Her voice became quieter. The prophecy told me my choices could change the supernatural world. She touched her stomach. And now I'm bringing a child into everything we built. Arya shook her head. No. Lyra looked toward her. You are bringing a child into a world where cooperation is possible. Arya pointed toward the settlement, where wolves and vampires live in the same territory. Then toward the council building, where rejected people receive choices. She smiled. You and Cade helped create that world. Lyra absorbed the words. Your child inherits it. Perhaps Arya was right. In a single year, the Supernatural Council had prevented 3 major conflicts through diplomacy. 19 additional pacts had adopted versions of Borderlands governance. Rejection no longer automatically carried the same assumption of worthlessness it once had. I'm terrified. Arya laughed softly. That sounds reasonable. What if I fail as a parent? Lyra looked at her. What if I focus so much on the pack that I neglect the child? She continued before Arya could answer. Or focus so much on the child that I fail everyone else? What if you stop creating catastrophes before they happen? Lyra frowned. Arya grinned. You have Cade. She counted. You have me. Another finger. You have hundreds of wolves who would protect that child with their lives. She looked at Lyra. You are not raising this child alone. Warmth spread through Lyra. She had spent so much of her life assuming strength meant carrying everything herself. She was still learning otherwise. I should tell Cade. Yes. Arya smiled. He's training the new recruits. Lyra found him on the practice grounds. Cade demonstrated defensive formations to younger wolves gathered around him. He had changed over the last year. Not only politically, not only emotionally. He looked happy. Truly happy. He now taught combat not as a method of domination, but protection. Lyra waited until training ended, then pulled him aside. We need to talk. Cade immediately looked alarmed. What happened? Nothing. The council? No. Vampire issue? No. Expansion problem? No. He stared. Then what? Lyra decided drawing it out would only make him worse. I'm pregnant. Cade stopped moving. What? Pregnant. He stared at her. With our child. Nothing. Cade? He continued staring. Probably a silver blood child. His mouth opened slightly. With 2 alpha parents. Still nothing. And approximately 7 months from now, we become responsible for a tiny wolf who did not request any of this. She took his hand, placed it over her stomach. We're going to be parents. For several seconds, Cade seemed incapable of processing language. Then his face changed. The brightest smile Lyra had ever seen appeared. We're having a child. His voice filled with wonder. An actual child. He looked at her stomach. Our child. Then he hugged her. Far too tightly. Through the mate bond, Lyra felt everything at once. Joy. Fear. Love. Disbelief. Excitement. We're going to make mistakes, Lyra warned. Absolutely. We're going to worry constantly. Yes. We'll probably become terribly overprotective. Without question. He pulled back. We're going to be those parents who drive their child insane because we care too much. Lyra laughed. Cade's eyes became wet. A year ago, I was an alpha who couldn't accept love without destroying it. His voice grew thick. Now I'm bonded to you. He looked around the borderlands. I'm helping create somewhere worth living. Then back at her. And I'm going to be a father. He shook his head. I don't deserve any of this. Lyra touched his face. That isn't how worth works. He looked at her. You chose to change. Her voice softened. You kept choosing it. She smiled. That matters more than being perfect. They remained together while the borderlands moved around them. Wolves trained. Councils met. Different species traded. Rejected members found work, belonging, families. Everything Isabella Silverblood had attempted to create through domination, Lyra had built through consent, through trust, through choice. We need to tell Vera, Cade eventually said. Lyra laughed. She's going to bury us in prenatal protection spells, and lecture us. For months. Think she'll cry? Lyra considered. I've never seen her cry. She smiled. But yes. They were right. Vera cried, then lectured, then created enough magical protective charms to defend a small army. By evening, the entire pack knew. The celebration lasted deep into the night. Later, Lyra stood on the balcony watching lights spread across the borderlands. For the first time, the weight of the prophecy no longer pressed against her shoulders. She had stood at the crossroads and made her choice. It had never truly been love against duty. Love had become part of the duty. It had never been power against cooperation. Cooperation had become the greatest expression of power. Isabella tried saving the supernatural world by trusting no one but herself, and failed. Lyra survived because she learned to trust, to accept help, to let others stand beside her. She touched her stomach. No pressure, little one. Below, the pack continued celebrating. But you're going to inherit a world where cooperation is possible. She smiled. Where rejection doesn't make someone worthless. Through the mate bond, she felt Cade listening from inside the tower. Where different species can stand together instead of destroying each other. Lyra looked toward the distant mountains. Try not to ruin it too badly. Cade's amusement flowed through the bond. They'll be fine. Lyra smiled. You sound very confident. They have us. She felt his warmth, and an entire pack that learned people can choose to change. Lyra watched the celebration. For once, she did not search for the next threat. She did not wonder which enemy waited beyond the border. She simply believed him. They'll be fine. We'll all be fine.